This boy hated magical girls so much that he became one himself just to show them how it's really done. This is a world filled with monster threats appearing at any time, and the only ones with the power to stop these creatures are the magical girls, since conventional weapons had no effect on those creatures. But the problem with magical girls was that these girls only relied on long-range attacks to fight these monsters, while most monsters came with built-in anti-magic shields. So every battle turned into the same old song and dance, girls running around the entire city, kiting the monsters for hours until their shields finally gave out, just to land one flashy finishing blow at the end. But this strategy always led to massive property damage and injured citizens, and even if people wanted to complain, the bureau responsible for these magical girls always delayed compensation so long that most gave up halfway through the line. As for the magical girls, after causing all that mayhem, all they did was strike their signature pose in front of the camera to reassure the citizens, as if that actually fixed anything. But one fateful day, all that changed, because one of those magical girls happened to blow up a motorcycle belonging to a kid named Jiangxi, a failed manga artist still trying to make it big using what little talent he had. And that was the last straw. Just then, he heard a voice from the side asking if he would like to become a magical girl. Turns out it was a clueless contractor who mistook Jiangxi for a girl, but quickly realizing his mistake, he apologized and prepared to leave. But there was no way Jiangxi would let such a golden opportunity slip by. After some light threats and aggressive persuasion, Jiangxi forced Amiya to hand over a magical heart. The magical heart was said to sense the inner desires of young girls and awaken their magical potential, which meant it should be impossible for a boy to use. But somehow, it reacted to Jiangxi, and in a burst of dazzling lights, swirling sparkles, flashy effects, and all that magical girl nonsense, Jiangxi transformed into a magical girl, and his very first thought after putting on a skirt, time to show these girls how a man deals with monsters. Meanwhile, in the distance, the pink-haired magical girl responsible for the destruction of his bike had fallen into a desperate situation. Her leg was pinned under rubble, and she was unable to free herself anymore. With no way out and death looming over her head, the girl prepared to detonate her magical heart and bring down the massive monster along with her. But just then, a white-haired magical girl appeared right in front of her. The girl mistook her for reinforcements, but then her eyes landed on the cross on her head and she realized she was just a support-type newbie. Desperate, the girl shouted for her to escape this place while she still had the chance, since she had a plan to take out this monster. But by then, the monster was already in range to crush her under its fist. But to her surprise, the rookie girl easily managed to dodge the attack and leaped straight towards the monster. Using the creature's body as a foothold, she leaped into the air, and to the girl's amazement, as soon as the newbie got in range, she activated her powers. With that, a thunderbolt started to manifest in her hand. As soon as she was ready, she hurled the powerful projectile straight toward the monster, and what came next shocked both the pink-haired girl and the little squirrel thing. They watched in amazement as the rookie's attack pierced through the massive shield and went straight through the creature's chest, driving it into the ground. Before they could even blink, the fight was already over. The squirrel thing was dumbfounded, seeing a support-type rookie take out a B3 level mutant beast with one attack. Our hero reminded the thing that taking out all the enemies is the best kind of support. Next, bam! Without any warning, Jiangxi casually sucker punched the creature on its head for being too annoying with its cutesy talk and told it to stop saying meow after every sentence. As for the creature, it lashed out at the kid, reminding him that he was the official contractor and Jiangxi was supposed to obey him. Without his help, Jiangxi could forget about getting stronger. He even added that his magic was ineffective against contractors, trying to sound intimidating. Next panel, the poor guy was on his knees, completely battered up after the friendly discussion session with our hero. Turns out he was right about his magic not working against contractors, but apparently, fists were still an option. He even laid out all the power-up items he had in his possession. Going through them, one particular item caught our boy's eye, and he asked the creature what it was supposed to be. It explained that it was the key to the dormitory, a facility managed by the Bureau for Magical Girls, where they lived with their contractors who supervised them at all times. But he wasn't included in the list because, well, he had something special between his legs that didn't exactly meet the Bureau's magical girl criteria. But the kid, completely ignoring that part, turned around to head to the place since he had nowhere else to go anyway. Then, glancing back at the creature with his usual deadpan tone, he asked if he had any objections to that, and of course he didn't. They were best buddies now, after all. Before the little guy could even explain the dorm rules, Jiangxi casually scooped him up and launched himself into the sky like a rocket, with poor Bobby screaming since he was afraid of heights. Meanwhile, back on the ground, the magical girl was finally free and was looking around for our hero since he was way too overpowered for just a rookie, and she wanted to know how he took out this monster with that attack. But since he was already gone, she decided to just absorb the monster's power for now, since protocol required her to absorb its residual power before the Bureau cleanup team arrived. Afterward, she could always return it to the girl next time they met. With that, she did her magical girl mumbo-jumbo, and the power from the monster's corpse started getting absorbed into her body. But it was too much for her to handle on her own, and she started struggling. That is when she recalled someone by the name of Mr. Bobby, since he was supposed to scan her during absorption to confirm elimination of the monster. But while all that was going on, she failed to realize something strange that was happening nearby to a laptop that was slowly starting to repair itself on its own using the excess energy being released by the monster's corpse. Cut to our boy, who was on his way toward the place. Curious, he asked the little furball why it was afraid of flying, since all contractors naturally possess the ability to fly on their own. The thing just replied with a shaky voice, saying it had its reasons. Just then, it pointed toward the distance, telling him they had finally arrived. Oh look, in a black and white world, the only pink house. As for our hero, he decided to land, but since he didn't know how to, he came up with his own strategy. Summoning his magic staff, he used it as a booster and propelled himself toward the ground, plummeting straight down like a meteor. With a loud crash, he landed right at the front gate of the building. As for poor Bobby, the guy was completely out cold, probably traumatized from the past 5 minutes he'd spent with this lunatic. But our hero didn't care and started smacking him around to wake him up so they could enter the building. Cut to the inside, and the guy was now in his default skin, looking around and commenting on how good the living conditions for these magical girls were. But since Bobby wouldn't stop complaining about him transforming back, he reminded him it wasn't his fault. His clothes had exploded after transformation, and he didn't have anything else to change into right now. Bobby clarified that wasn't what he meant. He meant Jiangqi couldn't transform back into a guy. He had to keep his male identity a secret in front of the other power girls no matter what. Upon asking the reason, the little furball informed the kid about an old prophecy passed down among contractors, one that spoke of an extremely self-centered, violence-obsessed male who would one day awaken the magical heart meant only for females and eventually bring ruin to the entire world. Yeah, extremely self-centered, violence-obsessed male. Nope, didn't ring any bells. But Bobby wasn't buying it for a second, because if anyone in this world checked all those boxes, it was definitely the guy flying him straight into a crash landing 5 minutes ago. But still, now that things had come to this, he instructed him to stay in his magical girl self when inside the mansion. Otherwise, he warned, the entire contractor world along with magical girls would hunt him to death. Plus, there was something else they needed to do before all that. Handing him a contract, he explained that normally this was to be signed before transforming, but since they skipped that part, he needed to sign it now so he could officially register him in the bureau system. Cut to the outside, and the pink-haired power girl was seen making her way back into the mansion. That was when she received a notification on her phone by Bobby about a newcomer who recently joined and was living in the dorm. He also added that they definitely shouldn't interact too much with her since the girl was a shy type. Reading the message, the girl wondered if this magical girl could be the same one she saw during that battle, but the only way to know was to see it for herself. So she started entering the place to return the power she absorbed from that monster back to her. But entering the place, the poor girl froze in disbelief. There he was, a man sitting on their sofa with his manhood dangling, with his contractor running around like his personal maid bringing him tea. Yeah, the poor girl even forgot how to breathe anymore. As for the guy, he didn't even bother looking up and introduced himself as the brother of the girl she met earlier during that battle. Next second, bam, the girl fell to the ground completely out cold. Cut to a couple of minutes later and the girl was back up and after a small talk realized our boy would be staying with them temporarily to take care of his sister since she was shy. But the pink girl assured him not to worry about a thing and to leave her training to her, and she would make sure she becomes a proper power girl. But our hero fired back with a jab, reminding her she couldn't even beat that monster back in the city, while his sister, who had just transformed, wiped it out in a single attack. So what exactly was she planning to teach her? The poor girl, embarrassed and annoyed, snapped back that he wasn't a power girl, so he couldn't possibly understand. That was when our boy started laying out some wisdom on her. He explained how they always relied on magic attacks against monsters, which was pointless since most of those things came equipped with magic barriers. In the end, they'd end up wrecking half the city just to take down one creature. What they should be doing, he said, was imbuing physical objects with magic energy and taking the monsters out directly. That one hit hard. Both of them froze because yeah, that actually made sense. As for Bobby, in his head, he just thought how unexpectedly brutal this guy was. Next panel, bam, straight punch on his face, and he was sent flying across the room. Just then, he heard the phone ringing and wondered who it could be. Picking it up, he heard someone from the Bureau Post-Disaster Processing Department who was informing him that the damage statistics were complete and requesting that the magical girl responsible for defeating the monster report to the scene immediately for confirmation. That surprised the girl since this process usually took several days, not hours. But when she turned around to tell him, she froze as she saw a girl standing there instead of our boy, explaining her brother had something important to do, so he left. As for the pink-haired girl, the only thing going through her head was how tiny she was. Yeah, what's up with that? 1 second he has his thing dangling, next second he is short with a chest. Anyway, the pink-haired girl couldn't help thinking how impossibly cute this newcomer was, and was having a hard time believing someone like that guy had a sister like her. Before she even realized it, her hand had already reached out, pinching the girl's soft cheeks. A second later, she snapped back to her senses and quickly apologized, flustered, mumbling something about her body moving on its own. Cut to the site, and they had finally arrived to see what all this was about. As for our hero, he couldn't help but ask if this damage statistic included an electric scooter and a new computer, but the man in front of him informed him those things' value was too small, so they weren't being counted. But just then, the pink-haired girl suddenly noticed him acting a little weird for some reason, since his expressions had gotten oddly blank, like he was holding something in. Before she knew it, she saw blood splashing all over the documents in her hands. Startled, she looked up only to see our boy's magic staff impaled through the man's chest. Shocked, she asked what he was doing, attacking a civilian like that, but it turned out the one standing there was no civilian but something else entirely. Before she knew it, she saw all the soldiers present in the area, turning into smoke and merging together to form something else entirely. As for the one standing in the front, he asked our boy how he figured it out, and the answer was simple. The face he was wearing was of a man he saw die right in front of him during the last monster attack. Next panel, they found themselves standing before a dangerous-looking woman with a massive blob of flesh as the lower part of her body. Seeing the sight, the two girls in the back bolted, trying to escape the place, but then smack, one of them crashed onto some kind of invisible wall covering the whole area. Upon checking, our hero realized the thing was using an air wall to trap all of them inside. On top of that, no one from outside the wall could see them. As for the pink girl, she already knew they were in big trouble since this was a domain that only an S rank and above mutant beast could create. Since those creatures' strength is incomparable to the B3 beast they fought earlier, usually a group of magical girls are deployed to exterminate them. But even so, if they managed to trap their victims in this domain, it was certain death, since these creatures didn't play by the world's rules inside their domain. Once someone was trapped inside, escape was practically impossible. Just then, the ground underneath their feet suddenly cracked, but thinking quickly, our hero, using his ability, managed to grab onto the stunned girl, and using his super speed, he caught the other two ladies as well before they got pancaked. Landing back to safety, he turned his attention back toward that monster lady to finish this quickly, before things got even messier. But just then, a hand appeared, stopping him. Turning to the side, he found both girls he just saved latched onto him. Their hormones were all over the place as they practically begged him to indulge in some cultural activities with them. Turning toward the one responsible, he heard the woman explaining that this was the power of her domain. Every creature that enters here has their lust amplified, eventually becoming flesh lumps that only know mating. And when that happens, they merge together with her. She smiled wickedly and asked the kid to join them so they could become one. Before she could finish that sentence, a flash appeared, aimed right at her neck. Next panel, her head was seen rolling as our Chad stood there telling the girl he would pass. But to his shock, another person appeared from the lump of flesh, showing surprise since mating was the most primal joy of humanity, and asked why he was refusing. Little did it know, our hero was no ordinary human. He was a Chad, and Chads don't simp over anyone, unlike a certain somebody on the ground twitching, trying to keep herself under control. As for the other two girls, they were already gone, lost to the lust monster, and were nothing more than skeletons on the ground. Seeing that the girl's life was in danger, our hero leaped towards the creature once more to end it, before Pinkhead ended up like the two girls before her. As for the monster girl, she decided to use other ways to deal with him, since clearly he wasn't affected by lust. Our hero saw a bunch of tentacle-looking things blocking his way, but something like that was child's play for him. He imbued his staff with magic and hurled it straight through the vines, and the thing tore through the girl's chest, taking her out in one go. But then, to his shock, more and more figures started to appear from the lump of flesh, and before he knew it, he was surrounded by girls from all sides. But just then, he stopped as he realized something about all these women. They were all characters from his manga that he drew over the years. Next chapter, and the poor girl was already at her limit, unable to control herself anymore, and at that moment, she saw our hero standing there, and she finally broke and gave in to the temptation. But then, whack, a punch landed right on her head, snapping her back to her senses as our hero informed her he already disconnected those vines covering her body and asked what she could tell him about that monster. The girl explained that creatures such as these were known as calamities. Their origin was unknown, along with their purpose. Based on strength, these could be anywhere from rank C to S, and as far as they know, these calamities mutate from everyday objects. But specific conditions for mutation are still unknown. That last part about mutating from objects caught our hero's attention, but before he could dwell on it, he heard the creature complaining that they were ignoring her and whispering on their own. And bam, she threw a massive tentacle toward the kid, but he easily managed to get out of the way. But now he knew the creature's weakness, so with that in mind, he leaped back into the fight, commenting that its real body was somewhere else, and all these were just clones it was using for distraction. The creature was impressed that he managed to figure that part out, and asked what he was planning on doing with that knowledge, and the answer was to kill all clones and force the real body to show itself. To that, the creature chuckled, asking if he even knew how many clones it possessed. Yup, the kid knew exactly how many, minus the two he already took out. It still had 1,215 clones. That number made the thing freeze for a moment since it was the exact count of her clones. As for our hero, he summoned his staff and lunged down to take out all of the clones. With that, he started carving his way through all of them like a flash of light until it was already the last clone left, which he easily managed to take out as well. With that final clone destroyed, the giant blob started transforming once more, which left the pink girl wondering if it was finally over. But our hero corrected her that the creature was entering its second phase. Just as he said that, the massive thing bursted open, and from within, a human-shaped figure slowly rose up, and bam! Next thing they saw, a computer girl. Damn, this is a first. Never thought computers could be so damn fine. As for our hero, he recognized the thing as his laptop that broke during the morning incident. As for the thing, it started thanking our hero for getting rid of all those clones, pointing out that it was tired of using the stupid characters from that stupid manga artist's boring erotic story. Anyways, with that, it started doing something with the keyboard, muttering something about maxing the lust buff for both of them. Before they could even react, it launched some chords from its hands straight toward both of them. After that, well, I don't even know what it started doing, but whatever it was working, since even our hero was affected by that ability's effect. As for the poor girl, she lost all her strength and fell to the ground. Seeing her condition, our hero realized she wouldn't be able to hold out for much longer, so with no other choice, he told the girl to use whatever strength she had left to launch her laser attack at him. But the girl refused, knowing full well he wouldn't survive. But our hero assured her not to worry, reminding her they were dead anyway, so they might as well take that chance. Hearing that, the girl realized he was right and decided to trust him on this. With that, a powerful laser shot straight toward our hero, and he was thrown several meters away, which even shocked the computer girl. But then, from the smoke, she saw him rising back up to his feet, using his healing ability to recover his strength. That reckless strategy even surprised the enemy, since he gambled everything on that one moment, but it didn't matter. His body was beyond damage, meaning he was in no shape to fight back anymore, and because of that, she managed to trap him inside her cords, declaring her victory. But then she saw our hero muttering from within the prison that she lost. Shocked, the thing looked down, and sure enough, she saw his arm latched onto her body. Before she could even think about breaking herself free, our hero summoned his staff, and wasting no time, imbued all his remaining magic power into the thing. Before the girl knew it, a massive explosion rocked the whole area. Next panel, the girl was seen on the ground, completely out of energy and on the brink of death. As for our hero, he casually walked up to the thing to deliver the final blow, and the sly one, still not done, turned on her pity act, reminding him she was still his precious computer, telling him if he killed her, all his work and all his manga would be gone. She even promised she would behave from now on and continue to be useful to him. But not even letting her finish that sentence, our hero drove the staff through her screen, shutting her up for good. With that creature finally gone, the barrier trapping them inside the place also started to fade away. As for our hero, he didn't even look a bit pleased at how things turned out. Hearing the girl telling him they did it, he silently whispered he lost. Surprised, the girl asked what he was talking about, and our heartbroken fool told the girl that all his dreams died with that creature. Cut to the night, and the pink girl, whose name I still don't know, was shocked to hear such a powerful monster wasn't an S rank. Bobby explained that according to its magic signature, the thing was an A rank mutation monster, which was far from being an S rank. As for why it was able to open its own domain, the Bureau was still investigating that. Besides, he pointed to our Chad, explaining that after absorbing the creature's magic, he, or rather she, it's so confusing, only reached Bud Stage 1, which was all the proof they needed. Curious, our hero asked what this Bud Stage 1 was. Pink Girl explained that Magical Girl ranking was divided into 5 levels by the Bureau, which start from Seed, Sprout, Leaf, Bud, and Flower, with each level further divided into 3 stages. To rise their level, they need to absorb the magical power from the defeated monsters. Impressed, our hero called her Miss Know-It-All, which the girl happily took as a compliment, pointing out that she got full marks in her magical theory back in the day. Cut to the next day, and the place was seen being swarmed by choppers for some reason. Out came men in black who started laying down a red carpet for someone. With that, out came a blonde girl from the chopper, a girl by the name of Ye Lin, daughter of the richest man in the city, and shocker, also a magical girl. Stepping out, she saw one of her servants apologizing that no one came to greet her at the door, even though he notified the station in advance of her arrival. Next panel, the guy was on the ground apologizing, with the furious girl asking who told him to notify them in advance, since she wanted to see how these commoner magical girls trained in their natural environment. But ignoring the fool, she made her way toward the door. Cut to the inside, and the pink girl was on the ground panting, covered in sweat, asking if she could take a break. Right there, our hero, just as equally exhausted from whatever they were doing, refused to stop after coming so far and told her to endure it just for a little while longer. Just then, Yellen walked into the room and froze at the sight of what both of them were doing. I don't know what was going through your guys' heads, but get your head out of the gutter. They were in the middle of their physical training. But for Yelin, that took her by surprise since they were supposed to be magical girls, and doing physical training was pointless for them. Seeing her standing there, the pink girl got up and asked who she was, but the girl was more focused on the one doing push-ups, completely ignoring her. So she reminded him he should be practicing magic, not physical fitness, and demanded they stop whatever they were doing immediately. That annoyed our Chad, since this blonde princess suddenly barged into private property and started hurling orders at them like she owned the place or something. Furious, her lackey tried to intervene, but our hero simply grabbed his finger, and with one snap, the guy was already on the ground, groaning in pain. But ignoring the fool, our hero turned to the pink girl, asking where Bobby was, to which the girl informed him he had been in his room since yesterday and hadn't come out yet. Cut to Bobby, raging in his game, screaming for his teammates, calling them brainless potatoes for rushing mid. Just then, out of nowhere, he suddenly sneezed in the middle of his raging, wiping his nose. He figured it was probably our hero cursing him or something. Cut a couple of minutes later, and Bobby was telling someone he did receive a message from the headquarters about a girl who was being transferred to their dorms. Yeah, guess he had another one of those friendly talk sessions with our hero, since the guy was completely swollen after the beating he took and was apologizing, saying he spent the whole night playing ranked matches and forgot to pass on the message. But our Chad wasn't done, and he prepared to teach him a lesson. But lucky for Bobby, the pink-haired girl jumped between them, trying to defuse the situation. As for the princess, she just sat there watching the entire circus unfold in complete disbelief. Finally, unable to take it anymore, she slammed her hand on the table and shouted, telling them to stop. Furious, the girl introduced herself, explaining the reason she came to this place was because 2 days ago they killed an A-rank mutation monster, so headquarters believed they had some talent, although from what she had seen, she doubted it. But ignoring that, she told the two she was here to lead them to form a new action team. Yeah, our hero had zero clue what that was, which annoyed the girl even more. But the pink girl explained that it was like a promotion. From now on, they would be deployed to other areas as well, with stronger monsters. Blondie also chimed in, explaining that forming an action team wasn't as simple as they thought. Even though the headquarters approved it, they still had to pass a combat assessment. With that, she got up, telling both of them to get ready because she was here to help them pass that test. After all, she believed with their current abilities, they would never pass that assessment in this lifetime or the next. Cut to the place in the middle of nowhere. Inside a massive arena, a woman was seen explaining that normally candidates were supposed to level up for about a year before attempting the assessment. She explained they couldn't possibly pass this test with their current strength, since 2 of them were Leaf Stage 2 while the third was Bud Stage 1. On top of that, a support healing type. But before she could even finish, the pampered princess stepped forward. Clearly done with the lecture, she said she didn't have time for any of that, claiming she was only there to go through the formalities and that she alone was more than enough to handle whatever this test was. With no other choice, the instructor reluctantly agreed but gave one final warning. Once the assessment begins, there's no stopping it. Just then, a massive magic circle lit up in front of them, its glow spreading across the entire arena. All 3 of them stared in amazement as 3 monsters started emerging from the swirling portal. Not just any monsters either, powerful ones, and one was even a B+. The princess, however, wasn't intimidated, and told both of them to step back and let her handle this fight. With that, she activated her powers and started transforming into her magical girl form. I mean, it's just changing clothes, how does that give them strength? Anyway, the girl whipped out her gun and told both of them to look closely, since she would only demonstrate this to them once. Next second, bam, the head of the B+ ranked monster landed right next to her, startling the girl. Turning toward the one responsible, she saw our hero, who had already taken out all the monsters while she was busy with her dramatic transformation, and was even asking for more. Fast forward, and they were proudly receiving their certificate, which was proof that they were now officially a combat team. Well, 2 of them were proud. The princess, on the other hand, was absolutely fuming, since she never expected that little brat to be this powerful, and that ruined her big moment. On top of that, she had been practicing that line for so long to look cool, and he completely ignored it. Just then, the instructor approached our hero, praising him since she never expected a mere Stage 1 bud to possess such strength to complete the test in record time. But our hero, on the other hand, noticed something strange going on since he wasn't able to move his body for some reason. Before he knew it, bam, all his clothes were torn off his body. Okay, I thought it was the costume that made him look like that, but the guy literally grew a pair of boobies after becoming a magical girl. Anyways, this sudden blast caught the other 2 girls off guard as well. As for the instructor, she was staring at our hero a little too closely for some reason. And seeing this, the pink girl wasted no time and covered him up. As for the princess, she demanded an explanation for this sudden attack. But the woman, acting all clueless, apologized, saying she forgot to retract the residual magic from opening the summoning array in time, and her power leaked out of her body on its own. But our hero knew it was a lie, since he clearly noticed the woman intentionally activating some kind of ability and realized that woman might be onto something. Just as he had feared, the woman had suspected him to be a boy, since there was something wrong with his magic attributes. On top of that, she was sure he was using some kind of method to hide his true gender, so she decided to keep a closer eye on him. With that, the story cuts 10 days later, and both of them were seen walking around the docks at night. Just then, they got jumped by someone, startling the poor pink girl out of her skin, and she instantly latched onto our hero, mumbling something about ghosts, but the kid told her to get off him, telling her to take a closer look. It was just the princess, who was complaining that they were late since they were supposed to meet up at this place at 9 o'clock. That surprised both of them, since Bobby clearly told them the meetup time was 10 o'clock. On top of that, they weren't briefed about this mission either. That actually annoyed the girl, since, just like the two of them, their contractor was just as annoying. But deciding to ignore that, she told them to follow her to the ship, and she would explain everything once they were there. That surprised the pink girl, and she asked what ship she was talking about. The next thing she knew, she was standing in front of a massive cruise ship, something so large and grand that it left her speechless. What shocked her even more was that she was sure this thing hadn't been there a moment ago. But ignoring her, Yelin handed the lady their first-class guest tickets, who explained to them that this voyage would last 3 days and 2 nights. Cut to the inside, and the whole place was filled with nobles. Eating, drinking, dancing, everyone having a time of their lives. To the side was Yelin explaining about the mission. She told both of them about a story of a ship 20 years ago which collided with an oil tanker near the coast, causing a fuel explosion. She told them that according to the reports, the entire vessel burned and sank within 7 minutes with no time for rescue, and all 616 people on board died on the spot. And this incident was later known as the Four Seasons Maritime Disaster. That name shocked the pink girl, since that was exactly the name of the ship they were on right now, and she asked if Yolin was saying this was the same ship that sank 20 years ago. That also caught our hero's curiosity, since this was something new for him, so he asked Yolin if they were sent here to hunt ghosts. The girl explained that after receiving multiple reports of sightings of this cruise ship, the management bureau sent investigators, but for some reason all of them disappeared without a trace after boarding. That was why this time they were sent to investigate, and if they found any kind of monster, they were to eliminate it on the spot. She told both of them to be on guard, since that calamity could be hiding in any part of the building in any form, including items, furniture, machinery, even food and drinks. Yeah, no, our boy wasn't even listening to her, so the furious girl strangled him, telling him to spit it out. Annoyed, he did as told and hurled out the whole drink. After he was done, he told both of them there was no use talking about it and suggested they search the whole place, since the monster wasn't actively attacking anyone yet, so they still had time to stop it before it could harm the passengers. Fast forward, and the three were seen walking around the ship, with our hero casually wondering aloud if this whole ship could be a calamity. But Jialin quickly dismissed the idea, explaining that no record had ever mentioned a monster of such massive scale or complexity. Besides, that theory didn't explain the presence of actual people on board. Just then, they spotted a sign in the distance reading, "If you're prepared to go to heaven, then go in." Yeah, that was definitely suspicious and worth checking out. So without any hesitation, they entered the room and were greeted by a sight they were not expecting. Just then, a figure appeared behind Yelin, startling the girl so badly she almost screamed. But as they turned back, yeah, the place definitely looked like heaven. It was actually a spa, famous for making its guests feel heavenly. Fast forward, and I'm not sure I should be adding this part or not, since the girls were having the time of their lives being squeezed by the two women while our hero just stood there watching the whole thing unfold with full composure. Fast forward once more, and all three of them had finally arrived back in their room without finding any clues. As for the pink girl, she was mesmerized by how luxurious the whole place was, and that annoyed Yilin, so she reminded her to keep her head straight since they were not here on a vacation. Yeah, right, like she was one to talk. Our hero reminded her how much she was enjoying herself during that massage. The comment made Yolin blush furiously, and she quickly snapped back, telling him to shut up. Trying to move on, she suggested all three of them take some sleep for now. And since there were three of them, they could take turns keeping watch at night. The first shift went to the pink girl and our hero, since according to Yolin, it was the easiest one to stay awake for. She would take over during the second half of the night. But just as our hero was about to head to his bed, he got stopped, and turning back, he saw the pink girl asking if she could sleep with him in his bed since she was still scared. And this stupid little brat turned down the opportunity of a lifetime, telling her flat out no. Next panel, and of course she was already latched onto him, sleeping peacefully while he lay there wide awake, completely unable to move. On top of that, she was hugging him a little too tightly. And that's when it happened. His weapon finally reacted because of all the softness pressing down on his arm. Cut to a couple of minutes later, and he was seen in the washroom, looking in the mirror. Turns out his transformation ran out, and he was now back in his default skin once more, with all the right tools back in their place on his body. Turns out his transformation only lasts for 23 hours, with a 1-hour cooldown, which was required for his body to recharge its magical energy to transform again, which meant the next hour he needed to spend in the toilet trying to deal with the aftermath. Just then, his hand accidentally hit a glass, sending it crashing to the floor. The sound jolted Yelin awake. Getting up, the girl wondered what was going on, but as she turned toward our hero's bed, he was nowhere to be seen. Annoyed, the girl barged into the bathroom to confront him for slacking off while on duty, but to her surprise, the whole place was empty. Just then, she saw a towel falling in front of her from the ceiling, and sure enough, the poor girl was traumatized seeing what was hanging in front of her. With that, a loud thud rang in the whole room, and the Sleeping Beauty didn't even react to all the noise caused by whatever was going on in there. Meanwhile, back in the room, our hero had the girl pinned under him, and since she wouldn't stop squirming to break herself free, he figured it would be better to put her to sleep for now, and karate chopped her at the back of her neck. Fast forward 1 hour, and the girl was seen trying to explain what happened to her earlier, explaining she saw a pervert flasher hiding in their bathroom who knocked her out and brought her out here. But the so-called flasher, now back in his magical girl form, just dismissed it, pointing out what she was saying was absurd, since no way a naked guy knocked her out just to drag her out here, and said she must have dozed off and dreamed the whole thing. After successfully convincing her, he switched the topic and told her about what he discovered while looking for her in the men's restroom. But the girl was more curious about the fact he visited the men's toilet looking for her, but ignoring that, he explained that the men's bathroom in this place only had stalls, no urinals, which was strange. But the girl reminded him this place was created by a calamity, so it made sense it had some things wrong. But our hero answered that the soda inside the liquor bottle he had earlier was so well replicated along with everything else in this place, meaning whoever made this place had real-world exposure to it somehow, but got the details mixed up. After hearing everything, the girl understood what he was trying to say was that the one behind all this was a female who doesn't know what alcohol was. Just then, they heard a couple to the side arguing about something, and out of nowhere, the woman broke down crying, telling the man she can't take it anymore. As for the man, he kept trying to tell her to keep herself together, but the girl told him she knows what will happen to her, but she can't do this anymore. That is when our hero heard Ye-Lin whispering, pointing out that those two were investigators sent here by the Bureau 3 years ago. Just then, they suddenly saw the woman start to cough for some reason, and before they knew it, she was choking on her own breath. And then, bam, she froze mid-motion. Her body went still, her expression blank, followed by some kind of a lullaby. Before either of them could understand what was going on, something started happening to her body, and next thing they knew, the woman was on the ground. But the scary part was that she wasn't a woman anymore, just a literal stuffed doll. Seeing the sight, Ye-Lin approached the grieving man, telling him they were sent here by the Bureau to investigate this place, and the weeping man, forcing a smile on his face, just told the girl that after 12 hours of boarding this vessel, no one can leave this place as they get bound to the ship, and when that happens, they must smile and be happy all the time, otherwise the same will happen to them. With that, the crazy man stormed off screaming that he was happy, but our hero on the other hand noticed something on the ground, and upon looking closer, he saw some writing saying to head to the lowest level of the ship's helm room. Cut to the place, and they found themselves standing in front of a massive door. Our hero pointed out that the man must be under surveillance by the calamity somehow, which was why he passed the message to them indirectly. With that, they opened the door, and the sight in front of them left them speechless. The whole place looked like a massive mechanical circus, but our hero corrected the girl, explaining that what she was seeing was actually a sunshine rainbow little white horse. Yeah, that didn't help. So he told her it was an animal that used to be really popular over 10 years ago. Just then, she noticed a strange symbol on the wall. Upon checking it out, she realized something was hidden behind it. Turns out, it was an investigation report left by that same guy who had tipped them off to this place. According to the report, they arrived at this place following the Bureau's instructions to investigate the area. At first, everything seemed normal, but after 12 hours of boarding the ship, they suddenly heard an announcement ordering everyone to keep smiling and enjoy the trip. At first, they didn't take the announcement seriously, but soon they learned the consequences of being unhappy. According to the report, the Bureau's magic detection in this area revealed that there was no possibility of an A-level or above calamity residing here, but after their own investigation, they realized this ship was clearly created by an S-level calamity since the creature possessed a massive authority inside this domain. For that reason, they decided to stay hidden and continue investigating. During that time, they discovered more and more unreasonable things on this ship and realized that the calamity didn't fully understand the human world when shaping its domain. As for the people on this ship, all of them were real humans, some survivors from the original shipwreck, and others civilians who had wandered in later out of curiosity. According to the man, the punishments that appeared randomly weren't part of the domain's rules, but rather the work of the calamity itself. That's why they concluded that the calamity's true body was hiding somewhere among the crowd in human form. After reading all that, our hero's thoughts went straight to that little girl he had seen when he first boarded the ship. He immediately told Ye-Lin about it, but Ye-Lin reminded him they can't just make judgments like that without any solid leads. As for our hero, he was fully convinced it was her. His reasoning? In scenarios like this, if a little girl like that shows up, there's definitely a problem, which according to him was common sense. On top of that, he reminded the girl they were running out of time and only had 1 more hour left before they were bound to this place. But Ye-Lin was still skeptical and suggested they try to confirm the little girl's identity before taking any drastic steps. To that, our hero told her not to worry about that fact since he had already thought of a way to verify it quickly. Cut to the girl who was walking around the ship along with her parents. that is when they got approached by someone. Turns out it was our hero holding the man's wallet, explaining that he dropped it. Then he added there was something he wanted to talk to him about, and asked if he had a moment for a small chat. Without missing a beat, he blurted out that he and his friend beside him are magical girls. That statement shocked the two parents, but before they could react to that, the kid pointed to the child, explaining they suspected her of being a calamity and asked if they could check her. As for the poor Ye Lin, the girl was dying of embarrassment, seeing how the kid casually pulled up to these people and started accusing their daughter of being a calamity without any proof. But then, out of nowhere, he grabbed onto the man by the collar, and before they knew it, he threw him straight into the air while moving out of the way, before getting turned into a Sikh kebab. Yup, turns out reading all those horror mangas had paid off, because the child really was the calamity they were searching for. Seeing this, he quickly contacted someone to take action at position 13, and that someone was Pink Girl, who instantly prepared to take action. Next panel, the unsuspecting creature got blasted by a full-power laser beam from below that tore through the ship's ceiling, reaching for the clouds. Cut back to the docks, where someone was commenting that they finally managed to locate the calamity. It was the same woman from the testing area, along with a female by the name of Xiao Yan, who was asking her if she still suspected that flat-chested shorty. She explained that she was overthinking things since she was just fast at killing monsters. On top of that, the Bureau magic detection software is full of bugs, so the report was probably false. But the girl answered that it wasn't just about the magic detection, but the way that girl fought was what made her suspicious of her. She went on to explain, unlike a normal magical girl, this girl doesn't use magic-infused spells. Instead, she injects magic directly into her own body cells, gaining power and speed far beyond normal limits. Then she uses her enhanced body to physically strike the calamity, which allows her to easily kill enemies above her rank. That shocked Jumels, since something like that should be impossible, as a human body can't directly withstand magic unless it's a calamity's body. To that, the girl told her that was precisely the reason, since her body was naturally magic-resistant, and reminded her about the Bureau's experiments when a male creature was forcibly implanted with a magic heart. After she was done explaining everything to her, she pointed out that the prophecies of those contractors might actually be coming true. Cut back to the ship, and the creature now looked like burnt bread. As for our hero, he was done wasting time on the thing and prepared to end him once and for all, and shot his staff towards the thing, ripping it into pieces and ending the battle once and for all. After the thing was gone, a hand was seen reaching out of the massive hole in the middle of the ship. Turns out it was poor Yelin, who got blasted along with the monster when Pink Girl shot that laser, and was fuming since the kid almost got her killed with that stupid plan. Cut back to the two beauties watching everything from the docks. Yaoyem was getting ready to activate her blood ability to test what they had been suspecting about that girl was really true, and conjured up a spell using her blood. Meanwhile, back in the ship, our hero suddenly noticed something strange going on with his body, and before he knew it, he was hoisted up in the air by some strange force, being dragged away somewhere. Seeing this, Pink Girl acted quickly and flew straight towards him to save him, and both of them slammed back to the ground. And guess what? The creature was also still alive, and using this opportunity, it threw its weapon towards both of them to finish them off. But just as the thing was inches away from them, a penguin-looking thing appeared and froze the thing in place using its ice magic. Turns out it was one of Yelin's summons, who was asking Pink Girl if the girl was okay. The girl told her she just fainted, but then she noticed something, and upon looking closer, realized it was a magic circle. But the problem was, this one was unique to magical girls, and she wondered who could be the one behind this. As for Yelin, she instructed her penguin friend they needed to act fast before the creature could recover all of its strength, and told it to freeze the monster while she used her kitten spray on it. The penguin did as told and leaped towards the monster, and giving it no time to recover, he blasted the thing with his most powerful ice attack and began freezing the thing. Just then, a projectile was seen being hurled towards the frozen monster, and as soon as the thing connected with the ice, it activated some kind of an ability, and bam, appeared a cat blasting the thing dead on with a powerful fire attack. Turns out this was Ye Lin's strategy that she used to roast powerful monsters, since their shields could only block magic but not high-temperature steam. But then, to their horror, a voice echoed from within the steam. Domain release. The moment those words rang out, the sky above began to crack like shattered glass. In the next instant, the massive ship that was sailing smoothly across the waves got teleported to the bottom of the ocean. As for the girls, they weren't prepared for this, and now at the bottom of the ocean, they had no way of fighting back or defending themselves. The crushing pressure and the lack of oxygen only made things worse for them. With that, Yelin noticed her consciousness starting to slip away, and the last thing she saw was the little girl slowly floating towards them. Cut to the outside, the one responsible for the chaos was calmly explaining to Cheyenne the nature of the creature's bizarre domain. Not only did it reshape the sunken ship and its surroundings, but it also trapped its victims within an illusion, making them believe they were aboard a normal cruise ship, gliding peacefully across the sea. But in reality, they were inside a decaying wreck resting on the ocean floor. To make matters worse, the domain projected a mirage onto the ocean's surface, luring unsuspecting travelers toward it. Once they crossed into the illusion, they were unknowingly transported to the seafloor. Hearing that, Cheyenne finally understood why she kept staring at the distance earlier even though there was nothing there. But still, she asked if what they were doing was okay, since that male body she was suspecting hadn't shown up yet, and they were risking the lives of all those girls this way. But the girl told her to just keep watching for a bit longer. Cut back to our boy, who was finally starting to regain consciousness, and the first thing his eyes landed on was a sight to die for, a very, very, very healthy woman lying on top of him. On top of that, she was sucking at his neck for some reason. Confused and still exhausted, he asked who she was and what she was doing. The female explained that she was sucking out the things inside his body. She informed the kid that he had a magic circle on his body that seals mana, which was why he lost his power just now. After some time, the kid was back to normal and realized that the woman standing before him was an investigator from the Bureau. Turns out she was part of the batch that was sent to this ship 5 years ago, and back then she met a girl in the Bureau with a strange ability. Her blood could attach itself to any magic circle and activate it whenever needed. Normally, something like that was only used against Calamity-class beings. Hearing that, our boy finally pieced things together. The circle must have been embedded in him back when that woman blasted him with her power. But what really threw him off was that just like back then, even though his mana had been forcibly drained, he still didn't revert to his original form. Just then, he noticed the oxygen mask strapped to his face, and that's when it hit him. He was underwater. That didn't make sense though, because the woman standing in front of him was breathing just fine. When he asked how that was even possible, the woman gave a faint smile and told him the reason: she was already dead. What stood before him now wasn't a living person but a wraith, recreated by the Calamity's magic. That was also surprising, since that would mean she belonged to that monster, but still she saved him. To which the woman explained that the Calamity, in its twisted obsession, had preserved her original memories. That's why, despite being under its control, she still had her own will. The girl explained that all the humans brought aboard the ship were just fodder, since every time the broadcast rang at midnight, the Calamity drained their flesh and blood to get stronger, and what remained of them became wraiths like her. At first, when they turned, none of them even realized they were dead. It was only after enough time passed that the truth started sinking in. But even then, some refused to accept it, still clinging to the illusion that they were alive. Even as wraiths, they were bound by the domain's rules, still afraid of obliteration, still unable to break free, and so they continued, an endless cycle of fear and suffering under that Calamity's shadow. But she told our hero they had enough of this torment without end, and now they wanted release. She informed our hero that he was still too weak to fight on his own, and needed an external supply of mana to recover immediately. And since their very existence was now made of mana, they had decided to give it all to her so she could take it with her and kill that Calamity for what it did to all of them. Cut to the outside. The creature, thinking that it won, was preparing to recreate its twisted domain to turn things back to how they were. But just as she was about to, someone poked her on the shoulder. Turning to the location, it saw a fist flying at full speed toward its face, and before it could even process anything, bam! A powerful fist landed square on its face, and it was seen getting launched back into the shipwreck, crashing hard through layers of rusted steel. As for the rest of the wraiths, they watched the whole thing in shock, unable to believe their eyes. Just then, they noticed their bodies starting to disintegrate, and all of them turned into mana, getting absorbed back into the creature. Getting back up, the girl cursed, thinking she shouldn't have left them with their memories after all. On top of that, the sneak attack from our hero was pissing her off, and she decided to take things more seriously. But just then, something got driven into her hand, and the confused girl turned to see what had just happened. Yup, she let her guard down again and got sneak attacked once more. As she turned to see the one responsible, she saw that it was our hero, who was telling the girl he had 2 questions for her. The first was what exactly her true form was, and the second was what happened to the 2 girls who came here with him. As for the monster, realizing she'd been cornered, the creature changed her tone completely. Acting innocent, she put on a pitiful expression and said this was her true form. She explained that she had boarded this ship 20 years ago, and when the shipwreck happened, she didn't know why she became like this, and since she was alone, she brought back everyone. Yeah, no, our hero wasn't falling for that sob story. Getting close to the monster's face, he told her she still had a lot to learn about human children. First of all, no human kid would ever believe a cruise ship is pulled by a sunshine rainbow little white horse, and second, they sure as hell wouldn't take strangers as their parents. Then he repeated himself one last time. This was her final warning. Tell him what happened to the 2 girls. Stuttering, the thing answered that just as they were about to drown, a strange flash of light suddenly appeared, and they just vanished. Hearing that, our hero realized it must have been some kind of teleportation circle. But before he could dig deeper, the creature had already finished whatever it was doing and started merging with the ship, and before the kid knew it, the entire wreck began to move, and the whole thing came back to life. Next panel, our boy was seen getting smashed straight out of the ship's body and thrown into the open water. Pulling himself together, he heard the creature's voice echo through the sea, telling him this was his second chance. He got 2 chances to kill her already, and missed both. And damn, that is one intimidating-looking monster. If only she wasn't evil. Now fully awakened, the creature, no longer hiding behind illusions, told him that this was her true body, and that since she had finally merged with her full power, he didn't stand a chance. As for our hero, realizing he was right about the whole thing being the creature's body, he couldn't help but sigh that the so-called second-gen's theory wasn't reliable after all. By then, the creature was also ready to attack back, and with one flick of her finger, the whole sea shook, with the massive vessel turning straight towards our hero, and before he could even get a chance to dodge, the thing was already at his face. Cut to the outside. The meddling witch was still watching everything in amusement, and since this was their first time coming across a calamity that was this large, she was quite excited about the whole thing. But still, the fact that our hero remained a woman even after losing all his mana was irritating her, and she wondered if she really was mistaken. But being the stubborn little twat she was, she convinced herself there had to be something else she was missing. With that thought in mind, she told Xiaoyan to go after the two girls while she stayed behind to observe the fight. But as she turned toward Xiaoyan's face, the girl seemed utterly horrified and speechless for some reason. Looking up, she saw the massive body of the ship being tossed out of the sea like it was a twig, and the whole thing crashed far away into the distance, destroying everything in its path. From the rubble appeared the monster, now separated from the ship and wondering what kind of monster she had provoked. As for that monster, he wasn't planning on letting her go that easily. Realizing this was her end, the creature begged our hero to just give her one chance to explain herself, promising to serve him forever. But it was no use. Without the slightest hesitation, the kid drove his staff straight through her chest. The last thing the creature heard were the words that came out of his mouth. Funny, that was the same line as the last monster he took out. After dealing with the creature, he turned his attention back towards the two girls, wondering where they could be right now. Cut to some other part of the city, and someone was seen crying while another person comforted her that there was still a chance she was still alive. Yup, it was the pink girl, now in a very questionable outfit, crying over our hero, telling Yilin she had seen him sink to the bottom with her own eyes and failed to grab him, blaming herself for it. Even Yilin was feeling conflicted. She didn't like the girl much, but she still had some redeeming points, so she promised herself to give her a grand send-off when they get back. Just then, they heard a familiar voice from the back, and seeing who it was, the girls froze. As for Yilin, she herself wasn't able to believe her eyes what she was seeing. The stupid girls, mistaking our hero for a ghost, started screaming, promising to burn a ton of paper offerings so he could rest easy and move on quickly. Cut to the South Pole, where several individuals were standing in front of a massive summoning circle. One of them informed the rest that it had finally worked. That was when they saw a thick thigh covered in black stockings step out from the smoke, followed by a woman's voice asking for the current time. One of them quickly responded, informing her of the date and time, calling the person their commander. Is it just me, or does this female look awfully similar to our hero, since she even mentioned that she should have just finished fighting the cruise ship monster? What is this supposed to be? A twin sister? Or his future self? Cut back to the city, and a bunch of choppers were seen making their way somewhere. Inside one of them was the pink girl, enjoying the view below since this was her first time flying. And with her, our hero, who was lost in his own world since he was going through an existential crisis for any boy, since his body was becoming more and more like that of a woman with each passing hour. Unlike before, when he used to worry about accidentally turning back into his real self, now he couldn't change back at all. The only time he could transform was through forced transformation, and even then it barely lasted an hour. The remaining 23, he was stuck as a girl. As for the airhead, she was staring down at the neighborhood below, amazed by how pretty it looked, and asked Yilin if her house was somewhere down there. That's when the broken finger fool decided to open his mouth again, bragging that the entire neighborhood was actually his mistress's home. Seeing how the guy was being a jerk again, Yilin felt irritated. As for the view below, the place was massive, clearly overkill. As for the two, they were shocked to see the size of the place, but still our hero, he reminded Yilin that she was supposed to take them shopping first before heading to meet with her father, so why were they going straight to her house? The princess, with a nonchalant look on her face, replied that she was taking them to shop in her home's own shopping district. Yeah, our boy was completely lost at that point. Turns out, the girl had an entire shopping street built right in her backyard. Since this was clearly something new to both of them, they asked what this was all about. With a casual smile, the girl explained that she got tired of going out to shop all the time, so she just had a section of her property converted into a personal shopping area. That way, she could shop whenever she wanted, without leaving the house. Yeah, both of them were just staring at her, wondering if this girl had completely misunderstood the meaning of the word shopping. But tired of all the chatting, Yaelin told one of her attendants to take their worn-out clothes and change them into something more presentable. Cut a couple of minutes later, and the pink head came out looking all stunning in her traditional outfit. But Yaelin turned it down, saying it was too old-fashioned. Next was a more modern dress. Yeah, that was a big no-no. Too revealing for Yaelin, so a hard pass there as well. The third one, though, seemed to work since Yaelin actually approved this time. Anyway, she herself was going with a sparkly red dress. As for the pink head, she was sparkling in her new dress as well. With the two girls now ready, Ye-Lin wondered where our little brat went, since she hadn't come out yet. Just then, he was shoved into the room with the two in his new black dress, and seeing her looking like a doll, even Ye-Lin couldn't help but pause for a second, since the girl was looking extremely cute. Catching herself before she said anything weird, Ye-Lin cleared her throat and told both girls to get ready. They were heading out to meet her father. Cut to some other part of the mansion. Someone was seen pouring wine for someone. Turns out it was Bobby with Ye-Lin's father. And I was not expecting this. I thought he was going to be a fat old man with a mustache. But the guy looks like a geek. Just then, he suddenly noticed someone entering the room, and turning to the ones, he saw that it was the three beauties. The man, wasting no time for some reason, went straight towards our hero, completely ignoring everyone else to shake hands with him, which even caught him off guard. But he heard the guy thanking him for taking care of the ship Calamity, and also he was grateful she was taking care of his daughter. Yeah, that last part didn't sit well with Ye-Lin. As for the man, for some reason, he bowed in front of our hero, telling him he needed to confess something, and bam! He whipped open his shirt, revealing underneath our boy's merch, screaming that he was his biggest fan ever since he saw her first battle against a Calamity. But before he got the chance to finish his sentence, he had his head buried into the ground. Shocked, all the maids turned. Our hero had instinctively swung his fist the moment he saw that horror show, out of pure disgust. As for the man, he stood back with a middle finger to his glasses, commenting his fists were as fast as missiles, and the masochistic little freak asked if she could do that to him once more. As for our poor hero, he was completely speechless, while Ye-Lin, clearly used to this nonsense, quickly apologized on his behalf, saying her father was just saying weird stuff again, and told him to get to the point already. That is when the man's tone got serious. With that, the scene cuts to the Anomaly Affairs Bureau, directly administered S-Class Calamity Containment Research Institute, where a breach was reported. In the command room, Director Q Lee was seen asking the man about their current situation and how this breach occurred, since in this place, not even a Calamity could possibly get in. The man with a scared expression reported that the intruder showed no signs of mana, and pointed out that based on their readings, it just seemed to be an ordinary human. That shocked the girl, since something like that should be impossible, not just because this facility was an impenetrable fortress, but because they were on the damned moon, meaning no human could survive the vacuum of space, let alone walk out there unprotected. And the one in question was none other than the same stocking lady who came out of that magic circle and looked awfully a lot like our hero. With one flick of her hand, the entire sector of the facility lit up in a blinding flash, followed by a massive explosion that shook the lunar surface itself. With that, the entire facility burst into chaos, alarms blaring, red warning lights flashing across every surface. On the outer perimeter, a person was seen trying to enter the facility, and the soldiers blocking the path wasted no time and opened fire. As for the person, all they did was raise their hand and all the bullets stopped in their tracks. Then, with a small twist of her wrist, all the soldiers' oxygen masks were ripped clean off their faces. Before they could even register what had happened, they were gasping, clawing at their throats, collapsing one by one under the merciless vacuum. As for the intruder, she simply stepped over their bodies and walked through the gate without so much as a sound. Oh wait, what do we have here? The artist had some surprises stored up, since from that bulky-looking spacesuit emerged a stunning beauty who was relieved to take off the junk from her body. And honestly, I agree it should be a crime to hide all that under so much junk. Anyway, the girl, after scanning the whole place for any possible survivors, created a magic circle on the ground, and seeing a person appearing from it, the girl called her mama, asking if she did well. Turns out it was the same girl who blew up this place, praising her for a clean job, but she also reminded her not to call her mama, to which the girl apologized, but the blushing girl also added that the commander always feels like a mom to her, so she couldn't help it. Seeing her make that face, the woman patted her on the head, telling her after this mission was complete, she could call her whatever. With that out of the way, the commander asked Zai if she had explained to Red and White who their target was. To that, the girl told her not to worry, since she gave them a photo of the person, so they should be fine. Cut back to the surface, and Pinkhead was seen complaining about something, saying she feels uncomfortable. In front of her stood two overly enthusiastic maids, insisting she relax and reminding her that their master wanted her to experience a genuine Yi-style spa treatment. With no way out, the poor girl reluctantly agreed and immediately regretted it the very next second. As for our hero, he was also there, soaking in the refreshing water while thinking about everything that had been going on recently. On top of that, he was thinking of getting out soon, since it was almost time for his transformation to wear off, and the last thing he wanted was to revert in the middle of the spa. But just then, a shadowy figure slowly started to creep up behind him, and before he knew it, he was in the arms of a very, very beautiful woman, commenting she still has more growing to do. And the clingy woman, with a tone that could melt ice, told him to come sleep with her tonight. As for our boy, he was starting to feel something down there because of all the affection he was receiving from her. Turns out this woman is Ye-Lin's mother, who did not look happy seeing her act just like her father and told her to calm down. To that, the woman apologized but also reminded her when she was little, she was always clinging to her every night, begging to sleep together, and the blushing girl denied ever doing that. But during their mother-daughter bonding session, they turned to see our hero, but he was already gone. Cut to some other place, someone was seen burning Yehuan's picture, with one asking the reason for doing so, to which the person replied, "This is what all the cool hitmen do in the old movies." Turns out it was the same two spacesuit weirdos Z mentioned earlier, Red and White. One of them asked if the other even remembered what their target looked like, and the answer was a dumb one. Hair and a little beard, strange behavior, and most importantly, the only male in the entire Ye family estate, so there was no way they were missing him. Cut to our hero, who was back in his manly self and was planning on hiding in this place for an hour before heading back. And yeah, he saw the two clowns sitting there burning a picture, staring right at him. Next panel, he was on the ground all tied up, wondering what was the deal with these two. Turns out, underneath those suits were two beauties who mistook our hero for Yu Huan, happy that he came right at them himself. As for our hero, he was brainstorming, wondering who these two could be. His first thoughts were aliens, since obviously the weird spacesuits, but dismissed that quickly since they were speaking human language. But then again, they used magic to restrain him, which clearly meant they weren't normal. But they didn't seem to be someone from the bureau either. Just then, he was jolted back to reality by one of the girls, and seeing him acting all clueless, the girl asked if there was another man here by the name of Yi Huan. Hearing no answer, she commented that the commander was right. He really was good at playing dumb. Yeah, our hero realized right there and then he was dealing with idiots since they mistook him for old Ye Huan. Annoyed, Red prepared to beat the answers out of him, and seeing that he might actually be in danger, the kid decided to stall for time until he was able to transform back once more. Thinking fast, he told the girl he was indeed that Ye Huan and told her he was willing to cooperate, so they don't need to use violence. Hearing that, the airhead fell for it and told the kid that they came back to this point in time all because of him. That one statement caught him completely off guard, hearing that these two were from the future. Cut to inside of the estate, and White was seen telling our hero to hurry up and remember already. As for our hero, who had no idea what he got dragged into, kept telling them he was trying, but if they kept rushing him, he was going to get more anxious, which will worsen his stress-inducing amnesia. But in reality, he was just stalling for time and needed just 6 more minutes before he could turn back into a magical girl. By then, Red had gotten quite impatient and asked if he could be stalling for time since she never heard of such a condition before. As for White, she was doing a quick check on his body, and after examination, she told Red he wasn't lying. Man, he must be really good at lying, that even the lie detector wasn't able to pick it up. As for our hero, he started thinking back to what those lunatics had told him earlier. They were after the address of something he was supposedly planning to do 7 days from now. Red even mentioned that by this point, he should have already decided on that location, and that it was supposed to be the most important thing to him. That left him wondering what exactly that Ye Huan was planning that made people from the future come chasing after him. Just then, they heard the door to the place suddenly opening up. Guess who? Ye Huan himself, casually walking into the room with not a single care in the world. But somehow, by the time he entered the place, all 3 of them had already vanished. Turns out they were hiding in the closet, and our boy found himself in a very compromising and dangerously soft situation. Let's just say his self-control was being seriously tested. As for poor Red, stuck in the middle, whispered angrily that this was White's idea, reminding her she was the one who said no one would come in here. And the stupid girl answered that there were too many rooms in this mansion, so she just assumed no one would bother coming into one this far out in the corner. As for Yu Huan, he walked towards one of the tables placed in the room, and the thing had a very suspicious-looking doll of our hero placed on it, which the man gently patted. And out of nowhere, he started jerking the thing violently while shouting for something to come out, and bam, from the ceiling dropped a full collection of our boy's merch. Damn, they even have underwear with his face on it. That's just diabolical. Anyways, the guy for some reason buried his face into one, called it number 312, and said today it was his turn. Meanwhile, the 2 girls watched the whole scene in confusion while calling him a disgusting old man, but White, for some reason, noticed the face of the person on those clothes looked awfully similar to their commander's. On top of that, the symbol on that girl's head was the same as that of the commander's, but Red told her to stop spewing nonsense, explaining that was the symbol of healing-type magical girls, which was very common in this era. Lucky for them, while they were still arguing, the man exited the room. Seeing this, Red let out a sigh of relief, muttering how that creepy old man was finally gone. But then she froze mid-sentence as that particular old man part sank in. Both girls turned toward each other at the same time, realizing what that actually meant, but it was already too late. Bam! A massive explosion engulfed the whole room, but the girls turned out to be completely unharmed. The same couldn't be said about their clothes, though. As for Red, she was blaming White since all this was clearly her fault. But just then, in the middle of their argument, they saw something appearing out of the smoke, and the thing grazed by Red's neck. The girl froze on the spot, realizing the person was more trouble than they thought. She signaled to White, and both girls joined hands, activating some kind of skill. With that, White's body started getting engulfed in flames, as Red instructed her to make it quick and clean. Next panel, both girls had fused together into an entirely different person, and were looking damn cool too. As for our hero, taking advantage of the situation, he managed to sneak up on this new girl, ready to knock her out with one punch. But to his shock, the girl easily managed to stop his fist mid-swing. Sensing the power the girl possessed, our boy demanded to know their identity. But hearing no answer, he flew back, creating some distance for his next attack. And since the person possessed extraordinary strength and speed, he prepared to end it quickly. But before he could even blink, the girl appeared right in front of his face, leaving him wondering when did that even happen. The next thing he knew, his face was being slammed straight into the floor, leaving a crater beneath him, and with that one move, he was out cold. As for the girl, she stared at him in confusion since she was clearly far stronger compared to any magical girl of this era, and because of that, they had to cause such a commotion. Just then, the door to the room suddenly opened up once more, and as the maid's eyes landed inside, they froze on the spot. There he was, our hero lying unconscious on the ground with a massive crater under him. Cut to the outside, the girl was seen standing atop a tree, with Red asking if it was a good idea to leave him back there, since there was a good chance he was the one their commander mentioned. But White reminded her he wasn't their target, and since they weren't supposed to cause a big commotion before the incident on the moon was over, she suggested they retreat for now and wait for the commander's orders. Cut to another place, someone was seen flipping through a set of floating cards, mumbling that she knew this day would come. Turns out this person was actually an S-Calamity locked up in the same moon facility, and this person wasn't a person either, but an actual Dullahan, or maybe something else since her torso was also dislocated from her hips. Anyway, she was telling someone standing before her that the answers they came for weren't hers to give, and standing right in front of her was none other than our boy's future self with Z beside him, and neither of them seemed too eager to hear her answers so quickly either, since they had time to have some fun before getting to questioning anyway. Cut to the next chapter, and the poor girl's head was seen gagged, drooping, and in the back her torso under Zai's foot. The interrogation method she chose was questionable to say the least. Not sure if the victim was in pain or secretly enjoying it, but Zai sure was enthusiastic about the whole thing, and was even dressed up for the occasion. As for the future protagonist, he was now sitting on the woman's throne, calling for Zai's attention. As for the girl, she was waiting to be praised by the commander for coming up with such a brilliant strategy of making her talk. But instead, he told her that once they got back, her phone was getting confiscated since he had no idea what kind of things she'd been watching lately to come up with this nonsense. Furious, the girl turned back toward the poor woman on the ground and started screaming, saying this was all her fault for being so stubborn. But the poor woman reminded her she agreed to cooperate the very moment Z first hit her. That made Z even more angry, and she asked why didn't she say anything earlier. I mean, obviously, she gagged the poor girl. How was she supposed to talk like that? Cut a couple of minutes and the girl was back in her clothes, with the protagonist asking her if she truly possessed the ability to open a divination domain, a realm capable of perceiving all known truths across time and space. The scared girl told her she was correct about that, but the problem was she was unable to access that realm right now since when she was locked up in here, her mana was completely drained. But that was no problem for the woman, and she signaled to Z, and the girl, without wasting any time, placed her hand on the ground. The next thing the woman noticed was a massive amount of magic energy swarming all around the room. The next second, she spun up to her feet as all that energy got absorbed into her body all at once, and she found her magical energy fully recovered. But as she turned to the two women, she heard the protagonist ordering her to open the domain. Sensing the overwhelming difference in their strength, the woman wondered who these two could be, since she could clearly feel no mana fluctuations on them, yet with just a move, they completely refilled her mana. Since she had no other choice, she decided to do as they were telling her and activated her ability, and all three of them found themselves in a completely different dimension. As for the girl, she informed both of them that the domain was activated, and now they could ask her any question they desired. But our hero cut in, telling her she was aware she could only ask 2 questions, so she got straight to the point, asking her about a password in this world made of 8 English words and uttered 4 words, 15, peer, wheel, forever, and asked if something like that existed here. The girl, using her ability, confirmed, saying they do exist. Hearing that, she asked her second question, what were the last 4 words of the password in order? The girl answered that the first word was Navy, second word 12, third word 18. But just as she got to the last word, a powerful energy wave shot through the air, hitting her right in the face. This sudden attack startled Zai, and she instantly got on her guard, asking who it was. From outside the domain, she saw Director Chu Li, now in her transformed state, telling Zai that should be her question, and asked who exactly are you two? Cut back to Earth, outside a hospital building. Inside, a doctor lady was seen examining our hero, saying she had no mana residue. This was purely physical trauma leading to moderate concussion, but also showed surprise since she should have woken up by now. Hearing that, both girls took a sigh of relief, hearing she was out of danger, but the doctor wasn't done and asked the two if they didn't mind. There was something she wanted to ask. That surprised the girls, but they told the woman to ask away. To that, the woman, in an all-serious tone, asked what was the relationship between the three of them, since they clearly seemed quite worried when she was first brought in here. To that, Pinkhead told the woman she was her best friend. As for Yilin, trying to hide her real feelings like always, told her she was just an ordinary coworker. As for the doctor, hearing both their answers, she got all bubbly, realizing this was the perfect character balance. Tsundere with an airhead and finally a loli. Just then, a hand landed on her shoulder, snapping her out of her fantasy world. That startled the girl as she heard a female voice asking if she was still not awake yet. Turns out, it was that very same woman who was causing trouble for our hero, and this time with a broken arm thanks to our hero tossing that massive ship on her during that incident. Seeing her standing there, the doctor asked the woman for her identity since not anyone can enter the patient's room. And the woman introduced herself, telling them she was from headquarters, direct security division, telling both girls that being an auditing instructor was just a side job. Hearing that, Yilin realized this woman was clearly up to no good, so she told her the brat just accidentally fell, that's all, since her brain isn't very good to begin with. So knocking herself out like that isn't new for her, and asked why the bureau was making such a fuss about such a trivial incident. But the woman wasn't fooled and reminded them just a fall can't collapse an entire room. Hearing that answer, Pinkhead lashed at the woman, since this clearly meant she was monitoring them. Just then, Yilin suddenly noticed one of our hero's fingers twitching, but luckily by then the woman was preparing to leave, instructing her men to keep a watch out and let her know as soon as she regained consciousness. Seeing her finally leave, Yilin gave our hero that annoyed look since she clearly realized she was just faking it. Cut to the night, and most of the guards were fast asleep. Same thing on the inside, everyone had dozed off. That is when the window to the room suddenly opened up, and our hero, despite possessing the ability of flight, prepared to climb down the building to settle the score with the two girls who did this to him. Cut a couple of minutes and Pinkhead was seen opening her eyes, still half asleep and in need to answer nature's call. But as she turned to see our hero, the kid was nowhere to be seen. Fearing he might have been abducted, she tried to alert everyone, only for a hand to suddenly appear from the back to cover her mouth. Turning around, she saw that it was Yilin, whispering into her ear to keep her voice down, since they didn't want to alert the two officers stationed outside the room. Confused, Pinkhead asked what was going on and if she knew where the kid went, but the girl herself had no idea. Still, she told Pinkhead to trust the brat. Sure, she wasn't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, but she was certain he had his reasons, something important, which she couldn't tell anyone, which was probably the reason she was faking being unconscious so she could handle it herself. Meanwhile, outside, while the girl was explaining everything to Pinkhead, her little mosquito friend was busy knocking out every security guard, nurse, and any random extra that happened to be breathing nearby. After Yilin was done taking care of the cleanup, she instructed Pinkhead to just stay put and trust the girl for now. As for Pinkhead herself, the girl couldn't help but show surprise seeing Yilin, who usually acted so cold, going so far for the kid. But Yilin quickly made it clear she was only doing this because she was her teammate and nothing else, and it was definitely not because she cared about her or anything. Cut to the Ancient Martial Arts Club, where a man was seen reading a recommendation letter from someone. Turns out, it was our boy who for some reason came to a dojo to train instead of searching for the two girls, and was telling the old man that her brother recommended him to this place, since he trained under him in the past, and spoke highly of him. Turns out, the bald old man was actually our hero's former master, back from the days when he still had his third leg dangling proudly between his robes, and now he needed his help once more. But here's the twist, folks. Back then, even though the kid was his top student, he'd pulled off something so outrageous that the old man was still itching to get his hands on him for it. But the fool himself had no clue what this was all about. Oh boy, turns out, this guy wrote a damned cultural manga on the bald man's life, and he was not thrilled about his newfound fame. But our hero tried to defend himself, saying he probably had good intentions. After all, he was just trying to promote the old man's ancient martial arts, right? Promoting martial arts was fine and all, but what really got under the old man's skin was that the guy had turned his entire life into a Yuri manga, and for some reason he made himself one of the main characters doing highly questionable things with the master, who instead of being a bald old man was now a beautiful woman with a ponytail. Anyway, the stuff he wrote about him was so over the top that the old man couldn't help bursting into rage the moment he remembered how he humiliated not only him but also his entire ancestral martial arts. As for the culprit himself, the guy was sweating, wondering what to do since he never came prepared for this kind of reunion and had no clue how to calm the man down. But lucky for him, the old man didn't unload all that anger on him. Instead, he agreed to take him in as his disciple, since he, or rather she, seemed far more reasonable than that ungrateful brat from before. So, as a starter, he told the kid he wanted to test his fundamentals so he knew where to get started. But the kid told him it might be a bad idea since she was sure he wouldn't be able to handle her in a real fight. That only rubbed the bald man the wrong way, since she was clearly looking down on him, and he decided to give her her first lesson in humility. With that, he started running towards the kid at full speed to show him why he was called the master. Next panel, and the poor guy was on the ground, knocked out cold, sporting a nice shiny bruise on his forehead. Cut a couple of minutes later, and the guy was finally back up, and he did not look happy. not just because she dented his shiny head, but also because the girl was ridiculously powerful. As for our hero, he was thinking the same thing, since even without his transformation, he was having a hard time holding back his strength. That was when he heard the guy suggesting they just focus on her technique for now, since despite possessing incredible strength, she still didn't know how to properly use it. To that, the kid asked how he was planning on doing that, and the man explained they would have to put her up against opponents of equal strength so she could learn how to control her power properly. And guess what? Despite that massive dent on his head, the guy still believed he could take her on, and told the girl he would personally be her opponent for the next 3 days. Wait, what's going on here? Did we just switch from magical girls to some reincarnation arc or something? When did Mr. Truckham make his grand entrance? Not sure what kind of training this was, but it included the kid running for his life from Truckcon, since clearly after that hit on the head, the bald man lost his mind and figured this was the perfect way to teach cardio. Day 2 rolled around, and Truckcon's second brother, Excavator Sama, was brought into the spar with our hero, helping him master the art of evasion. And finally, on the 3rd day, their hefty sibling, Bulldozer-chan, arrived on scene to assist the girl with her strength and endurance training. By the end of the final day, the girl was completely spent lying on the ground, out of breath and drenched in sweat. As for the old man, he was very impressed with her performance, since she learned how to combine her power and technique much faster than he expected, and now he only had one more thing left to teach her, after which she was free to go. But before he could, he heard the doorbell ringing and wondered who it could be. So to check, he started heading out, telling the girl to stay put for a bit until he got back. But then, out of nowhere, the girl suddenly heard a familiar voice outside and wondered what was going on, and why that person of all people would show up here. Getting up, Jiang Shai saw a familiar face on one of the portraits on the walls, which caught him off guard. By then, the bald man was also back, and sure enough, Ye Huan was with him for some reason. But just as her eyes landed on the two, she used her super speed and disappeared from the spot in an instant, and before the baldy could even flinch, Ye Huan, who was standing right beside him, was also gone like the wind. Next panel, and both of them were seen flying through the air, with the poor man screaming for the girl to stop since he was afraid of heights. But of course she wasn't listening, and after a couple of minutes of screaming and crying, the guy finally landed with our boy, or more accurately, crash-landed. After all that chaos, the old man's stomach finally gave in, and he started throwing up rainbows while cursing the kid for being so rough with him. After he was done emptying his guts, he asked the kid where he was for the past 3 days, since everyone had been searching for her non-stop. But our boy told him it was a long story and started stripping right in front of him, completely forgetting the fact he was now a girl. So he probably shouldn't be doing that in front of a perverted old man who had his face printed on his damned underwear. Anyways, he told the man there was something he wanted to ask of him, and Ye Huan had a feeling what it was and asked if he was talking about the upcoming event in 3 days, since he was sure him ending up in the hospital was also related to that. That confirmed our boy's suspicions that there was more to this guy than what met the eye, and he asked what he was planning on doing that people actually infiltrated his home to hunt him down and stop him. But the man refused to answer, since it was confidential information. But that was no problem for our hero, since he knew this was going to be his answer, which was why he brought him to this secluded area in the first place. Oh dear lord, what is he doing to the old man for him to be moaning so loudly? Even the guards on the ground couldn't help but sigh at how loud the man was being from whatever the two were doing up there. Oh thank God, for a second there I thought the kid crossed a line for information, but turns out he was just beating the old man to a pulp like a real man. But for the fool in front of him, it was less of torture and more excitement, since the guy was actually steaming up from being treated so roughly by a girl who was practically younger than his own daughter. And to make things worse, he started begging the kid to hit him harder, assuring him he was about to crack at any moment. By the time the kid realized how badly he'd messed up, it was already too late. With that, a loud smacking sound rocked the whole place. A minute or two later, the old fool was back up, preparing to tell the girl everything, and to make it more suspenseful, he told her what he was about to say was so secret that less than 1,000 people in the entire world knew about it. Turns out, these people were planning to summon a true S-rank calamity into their world. Curious, the kid asked about the others he was talking about. Guess what? The top brass of the bureau was also involved in this mess. Holding back his anger, the kid asked if he was really saying that he and the bureau were actually working with the calamities. But the man clarified that wasn't the case, then began explaining everything to her. He started from scratch, talking about the ranks of different calamities and S-rank being the strongest, just like the ones he had already faced in the past. The computer with all his darkest secrets and the big-chested ship lady. But he added, neither of those came close to the level of a true S-rank calamity. That part caught the girl off guard, and she asked how he could be so sure about that. The man explained they were just at the upper level of an A rank, which was why they were able to create their own domains. But he wasn't done. According to the old man, even though she defeated those calamities, they still weren't completely destroyed. That part was even more shocking for the kid, and he immediately asked the old man to clarify what he meant. The man told her that the energy that was released after the death of those calamities never truly disappeared. Rather, it was lingering in the air, and some of it was collected and contained by their bureau. But holding such power wasn't easy. If it ever got loose again, it would merge together, and there was a chance it might take the form of a true S-rank calamity. And if that happened, the destruction caused to the city would be unimaginable. Just like an incident 11 years ago when the S-rank gun calamity was born, and that was when they noticed something strange. The moment of its birth, all the other 17 low-rank gun calamities which they were monitoring disappeared without a trace. Later, they discovered that they all got absorbed into the S-rank calamity. In response, the Bureau dispatched its elite magical girls to take it down, and after a long and brutal battle, they managed to defeat the thing. But that's when they uncovered another shocking truth about S-rank calamities. Once one is completely destroyed, its energy vanishes entirely, and no new calamity of the same type is ever born again. That was a lot to take in for our boy, but he still wasn't convinced, so he asked the old man how he could be so sure that the death of that S-rank calamity was really the reason all the gun-type calamities disappeared. Turns out that incident 11 years ago wasn't their first experiment. Since then, they've created 741 more S-rank calamities, each one either eliminated or sealed away in hidden places where they won't be able to harm anyone. Yeah, the kid wasn't happy hearing these people had been deliberately putting the lives of everyone in danger by summoning these monsters, and asked how many more people were involved in this mess. But the man refused to say anything more, and our hero didn't press him either, since he just wanted to know what was going to happen in 3 days. And now he did. And since there was nothing more he wanted to ask the man, he started stripping once more and flashed the old man with his, her dazzling lights and other transformation mumbo-jumbo. After he was done transforming back, he prepared to take him back to the bald guy, but the guy started begging her to stop. Annoyed, our hero asked if he had a better idea of getting there faster, and the poor guy, still traumatized from last time, suggested they just take the stairs like normal people and take a car back, preferably one that stayed on the ground. Meanwhile, on the other side of the door, the two guards had their faces pressed against the thing, trying to eavesdrop on their S&M session, and wondered why everything got so quiet all of a sudden. Just then, the door suddenly opened up, followed by a blinding light that shocked both fools. But turns out this was no ordinary light, because magic circles started appearing on both their eyes. It was the old man with his magic wand, who used some kind of magic spell to wipe out their memories or something, and that surprised the girl since last she checked, normal people weren't supposed to be able to use magic. So Yi Huan explained it was all thanks to this wand, which was engraved with magical runes and had the ability to store mana, allowing even normal people to use magic temporarily. But the kid didn't really care about the thing. Instead, he informed him about the two girls who he saw in his home and were hunting him down, probably planning on interfering with their summoning, and told the man to be careful since both of them were incredibly powerful. But the man assured her not to worry. With this baby, he could call for headquarters backup at any time since it had a built-in transmitter directly linked to the Bureau headquarters. Yeah, the kid asked the obvious, why not just call them using a cell phone instead? Just then, an urgent announcement came through for both of them about their lunar base being under attack by some unknown force, so the HQ was requesting all Garrison Unit magical girls to remain on standby, while the Action Unit magical girls were to report to HQ immediately. That shocked the man since Lunar Prison was guarded by their top 10 ranked powerhouses, and wondered who could be strong enough to storm a place like that. But the girl, however, knew they didn't have time for panicking, so she just grabbed him by the collar and started flying towards the headquarters at full speed. Cut back to our boy's future self, who was watching the poor Taro's lifeless body on the ground, who honestly did nothing to either of them to deserve being taken out in such a brutal manner. Anyway, the girl was bummed since she was so close to finding her answers. Chu Li, on the other hand, wasn't so patient, and she demanded their identities and their reason for breaking into such a high-security facility. But of course, Z, being Z, attacked the girl instead with her magic, since she was being annoying, but soon realized this woman was trouble since her magic had no effect on her for some reason. And Chu Li, seeing that they had no intention of answering any of her questions, prepared to end both of them instead, and started charging up for another powerful lightning attack. Before either of them had the chance to react, she hurled the thing towards both of them, and in the next moment, the entire room erupted in a massive explosion. Next chapter, and a hand was seen appearing from the smoke, and out came our future hero from that massive blast with not even a single scratch on her body, telling Zai to leave this woman to her. Meanwhile, poor Q Li was shaking since that was her most powerful attack, yet this person not only stopped it with just one hand, but also did it effortlessly. Seeing her make that face, our hero decided to play some mind games with her first and started listing the woman's details, saying she was a first-order flower rank and the 7th strongest in the Bureau's ranking, and was temporarily stationed at the lunar base because of a certain upcoming event that was about to take place. Hearing how much the woman knew about her and the Bureau, Q Li froze and tried asking who she was and how she knew all this, but before she could, blood was seen splattering everywhere. Holy guacamole, I know our Chad is a badass, but his future self is on a whole different level. The guy didn't even flinch and ripped the poor girl's face off with just one attack. Well, what a waste, the girl had potential, But no point thinking about that now since she's already gone. Damn artist, taking out so many baddies like it's nothing. Still, I guess she had it coming for doing the same to poor innocent Taro. An eye for an eye, a head for a head. After taking care of a very promising heroine, future Jiangqi instructed Zai to drop the communication jamming circle from this place, which surprised the girl since if they did that, the Bureau would know exactly what was going on here. So our hero told her not to worry about that part since this was the only way to make them move, and once they did, it would give them the perfect chance to strike. Cut back to Earth, to the Bureau's central spatial zone, where our hero was asking old man Ye Huan where the Bureau was, and the man on the verge of collapsing from terror told the kid it was in the sky, 9,000 meters above the ground, and showed surprise that she didn't know about that. He explained that what she was seeing was the orbital elevator, which was the only path connecting to the place. But since it was an emergency, the place was probably jam-packed with magical girls. Other than that, she could also fly her way there, but she would need her flying magic permit for that. Yeah, this was the first time he heard about this permit, which surprised the man since it was issued to every magical girl once they learned to fly. Well, what do you know, he never actually learned how to fly. What he does is more like jumping than flying, using his magical staff as a springboard to launch himself into the air and repeating it mid-air until he gets where he needs to go. Yeah, the poor guy didn't even know what to say to that, but our hero changed the topic, asking about that staff in his hand and if it could be used as a normal cell phone to contact someone. Cut a couple of minutes and a chopper was seen hovering over the place, with someone complaining since there was no place to land the thing. On the inside, the same show-off butler or bodyguard of Yo Lin was telling the pilot to stop his whining and do as he was being told. Just as he was about to explain what the old man Yo Huan instructed him, he noticed someone tapping on his shoulder. Yup, our Chad. With the poor man on the brink of death in hand, casually greeting them with a simple yo, pointing to the guy. He told both of them this one belonged to them, so he just came here to return the guy and instructed them to keep him safe since he was heading out. But Yo Huan, bringing out a ring, told the kid to stop and take this with him, since this thing was supposed to be a lucky charm that always protected him, and he was sure it would keep her safe as well. Yeah, lucky charm my ass. It was just a cheap ring with his face on it. Next panel, and the kid was seen hopping his way toward headquarters as two other magical girls watched him in disbelief. On top of that, the girl didn't have any flying permit, so the one with pink hair asked if they should shoot her down. But the one with the sunflower on her head told her not to do such a thing since she saw the girl carrying a token from the Yed family. So clearly, she wasn't the kind of person they should mess with. Man, and here I thought the old man was just messing with the girl with that ring. Cut to the magical girl headquarters, which was basically a whole city hovering in the sky. And in the crowd, our two beautiful waifus were waiting for their turn to get registered so they could enter the place. While waiting in line, they overheard some of the other girls talking about this whole situation and how the headquarters was mobilizing their entire magical girl force to attack the moon base. And according to some of the girls, the ones they were supposed to fight weren't calamities but something else. With that, it was finally their turn to register, and since the girls were missing one of their teammates, they started making an excuse, telling the person it would be just the two of them for this mission. But to their surprise, the woman told both of them their teammate was already here, and had even finished reporting in before the two of them arrived. Just as she said that, our hero showed up out of nowhere to meet the two girls, startling poor Ye Lin in the process. With that, they made their way into the place, with Pink Head going on and on about how Ye Lin had been looking out for her ever since she disappeared and even hypnotized the people brought by the instructor, so they wouldn't snoop around for her. And the girl, clearly trying to hide the fact she cared about her, told Pink Head to stop. It wasn't worth explaining all that to her anyway, since her brain capacity to understand it wasn't exactly impressive. But still, she was curious and asked how that business of hers went, and if she managed to complete whatever she was planning. Our hero answered it went well and thanked her for sticking out for her while she was away, and the blushing girl turned around trying to hide her face, while Pinkhead cut in, asking our hero how he managed to get to this place with so much security, since he still didn't have any flying permit. So he showed them the stupid ring given to her by the old man Yo Huan, which allowed her to pass through all the security. Poor Yo Lin was so embarrassed by the thing that she started apologizing for her perverted old man, promising she was going to beat him senseless the next time she saw him. Just then, another announcement came through, instructing all magical girls to form teams of 3 and head to the designated room for an emergency assembly and magic refueling. Our hero had no clue what was going on, but seeing the other girls being hyped about it, he figured it must be something important. Even Pinkhead was buzzing about it. But Yulin, on the other hand, he noticed was looking a bit worried about the whole thing for some reason. Cut to the inside, and all the girls were seen standing inside a magic circle, and the thing started doing its thing to fill up the girls with magic. And holy shit, what the fuck is happening to these girls? And why do they look like they are about to explode with pleasure at any moment? What kind of logic is the artist even running on? Apparently our hero was the only one not affected by the tingly feeling, since he didn't show any signs of enjoying it like the other girls, and was recalling Bobby's words about how refueling magic for magical girls was like having a sexual climax. Mother of all nonsense, this artist, what was he on when he came up with this logic? Anyways, what's done is done. Every single one of the girls was now all sweaty and sticky as the magic power flowed through their bodies. That was when some of them noticed a strange odor in the room and wondered what it was. Well, I'll tell you what it was. It was Ye-Lin, who apparently can't handle refueling very well since she had a weak bladder, so the girl ended up wetting herself. And of course, the rest of the girls noticed right away and started whispering among themselves, trying to figure out who was responsible. As for our hero, he noticed the poor girl struggling, completely embarrassed by the whole situation, and realized he needed to do something fast. So he approached some weird red button in the room and slammed the thing with his fist. Turns out it was the emergency magic replenishment termination button. And seeing her do something like that right when the girls were on the edge, the person on the other end asked the reason. And our brilliant fool told the person to arrange a separate room for him and his team to replenish their magic. Upon asking for the reason, our Chad took one for the team, telling the person the sensation was too overwhelming, so he ended up peeing himself. Next chapter, and all three of them were seen getting filled up in a separate room. And as always, our Chad didn't even react, unlike the two women behind him who were struggling to even stand on their 2 feet. After they were done, our hero saw that after that recharge, his rank went up, and now he was at the Sprout Tier 2. After that, they stepped out of the room, where the rest of the girls were already gathered to wait for their next orders. But stepping out, they heard some of the girls whispering about our hero, how he wetted himself during the recharge, commenting she wasn't even suited to being a magical girl if she couldn't even handle something like that, and were sure that if during a battle she got hit by a magical attack by a monster, she would end up wetting herself instead. Pinkhead had it and was about to give them a piece of her mind. As for the fool in question, he was too busy thinking that a magical girl who wets herself in battle was actually a pretty solid character design. Damn artist, what are you even thinking here? I just hope we don't end up with a manga on that anytime soon. Meanwhile, in the back, Ye-Lin, who I hope took a bath after what she did, was thanking our hero for taking the blame for her. But our hero told her not to worry about anything since he knows rich girls like her mostly have a weak bladder, and was sure she still wets her bed at night too. Before Ye-Lin had the chance to fire back for that jab, they heard Pinkhead asking the girl if her parents knew she had a magic intolerance condition, but the girl told her no, otherwise they would have never agreed for her to become a magical girl in the first place, and asked them to keep it a secret from everyone. But since our hero didn't know what this magic intolerance was, Pinkhead explained it was a very rare condition where a person can't handle external magical power, and could be so severe in some cases that it can cause fainting or even death. Just as she completed her explanation, our hero saw a massive magic circle appearing underneath his foot, informing everyone they would now be teleported to the magic hall for their briefing. Next panel, and our hero found himself floating in an empty void along with countless magical girls, with a bunch of tombstones hovering over their heads. Confused, the kid turned towards Miss Know-It-All and heard her telling him this was a very special place that only activates for either the annual awards or in an emergency situation, adding that the 7 strongest magical girls in the entire bureau would also be attending this briefing with them. On top of that, she told the kid that according to some people, this place was inside the World Tree, which was why in order to enter here, they had to use short-range teleportation magic. The kid was actually impressed with how much the girl knew and asked if this wasn't her first time being here, and guess what? It wasn't. The last time she was here was during the annual awards since the girl was the only person in the history of the bureau to get a perfect score in theory class, so she was invited to this place. In the middle of their talk, the tombstone with letter 0 spoke up, informing everyone this was a matter of utmost importance, which was why the full emergency assembly had been called. It informed the girls that 3 hours ago the lunar base's surveillance magic circle was restored, and after reviewing the feed, it was confirmed that the base's entire defense force, including the 7th-ranked magical girl, had fallen. That news shocked all the girls since these people even managed to take out the number 7 powerhouse of their bureau, someone who could easily stand toe-to-toe with several S-rank calamities all on her own. But the thing wasn't done. It informed the girls that the invaders were 2 humanoid creatures with no magical power readings who used some type of magic that was never seen before and killed number 7 in an extremely short amount of time. And according to the orbital surveillance, the invaders passed through Earth's orbit to reach the moon, which meant they might still be hiding somewhere on Earth. Furthermore, after the battle at the lunar prison, the entire facility had been severely damaged. Since it housed a 116 S-rank calamities, they were afraid the place might not be strong enough to contain those creatures anymore. So if by any chance those things broke free, the consequences would be unimaginable. That was why all of them were being assigned 2 urgent missions. The first was to retake the lunar base at all costs and secure the calamities, and the second to search the entire surface of the globe to find and eliminate any possible invader accomplices. After relaying the details, it started issuing orders according to each team's rank and experience, and our hero squad was assigned to sweep the entire globe, searching for any clues that could lead them to those mysterious individuals. With that, all of them got teleported back to the headquarters with a final message to everyone. They were humanity's last line of defense against these forces and were urged to fight with everything they had for the survival and future of humankind. Cut a couple of minutes and everyone was receiving their mission details, and our squad got assigned to the South Pole. Yolin wasn't exactly thrilled about it, mostly because that place was nothing but penguins and ice, so clearly, they were just sending them there because they think they can't handle anything serious. Just then, a girl with a stupid cat ear device on her head came out of nowhere after hearing the girl complain, telling her it was a good thing their junior squad got sent to the South Pole since she was sure they wouldn't stand a chance against the people who took out number 7. Guess she should have kept her trap shut since, for one, Yelin had no idea who she was and why she was being so friendly with her, and two, if she was so afraid, then why bother becoming a magical girl in the first place? In the middle of all that, our hero told both waifus to head back without her because he needed to go see his family, since it had been quite some time since he saw his parents. Cut to the night, and he finally arrived at the place but was still hesitant to enter, since obviously he wasn't a dude anymore, and wondered how his parents were going to react, seeing the family's proud Chad show up after all this time with a completely different setup. Also, there was that Bobby who told the kid they used their powers to alter his parents' memories, and now they think they always had 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl, so he shouldn't be too worried about it. But knowing that Squirrel, our hero, knew that Thing couldn't be trusted with these important tasks and wondered if he should trust that guy or not. Just as he was thinking that, the door to the place suddenly opened up. And god damn it, what is this? Why is this woman calling him her little sister? No one told me the kid had a thick older sister. Well, I don't know what is going on, but he came in to have dinner with his parents and noticed the atmosphere was a little too gloomy for some reason. So the kid asked his mother what was going on. And bam, instant brain freeze. His mother told the kid his brother had gone through his gender reassignment surgery. What the heck, I'm so confused now. This guy used to be a dude, so he had an older brother, not a smoking hot sister. Wait, turns out this is actually his future self, who used some kind of mumbo-jumbo to alter their parents' memories and was telling the kid to call her big sister from now on. Oh boy, his father lost it hearing those words come out of his mouth and unable to take it anymore. The guy straight up prepared to jump out of the window to end it all, since he wasn't able to take it anymore. Finally, having enough of everything, the kid asked himself what all this was about and what she was trying to prove coming into his house like this, but the future self fired back with her own question, asking if he wouldn't rather want to know who she really was first. She calmly told the kid she just came home to see her parents before heading out for a major event, just as he did, and surprisingly, she noticed the kid didn't even react hearing she was him from the future. Instead, he asked if she came back in time to stop the calamity summoning, and if so, why attack the lunar base and kill so many people. His future self was actually impressed that he already knew so much about everything, but the kid wasn't in the mood for games, and asked if she came back to harm the current world in some way. But instead of giving him a straight answer, she told the kid that even if she was, there was currently no one in this world who had the power to stop her. Next panel, bam. A thunderous fist tore through the entire apartment. Well, what do you know, the real powerhouse of the family finally had enough of his nonsense and decided to show the girl just how wrong she was for thinking no one could stand up to her and got ready to beat some sense into her for making such a huge decision without consulting anyone. The poor guy tried to explain himself, telling her to accept new things and embrace change, but that only made things worse. So, with no other choice, she turned towards our hero asking for her help to talk some sense into both of them. But our boy had other plans, and apparently these plans included a brass buckle belt, which he happily handed to the woman so she could thoroughly explain to the cocky fool who the real boss was inside this house. Oh boy, the whole neighborhood echoed with the poor guy's screams as the woman beat the ever-living shit out of her while our hero was on the sidelines cheering her on to put her back into it, saying his older sister even bragged no one could stop her from doing what she wanted. Cut a couple of minutes later, he finally arrived in his room and saw that even the whole interior was changed, especially his bed, which was now turned into a bunk bed. Even a picture of both of them, which he clearly doesn't remember taking. Seeing how good of a job that Squirrel did with memory-altering magic, the kid was actually impressed. Just then, his future self with a swollen face entered the room, praising him for how he played him back there. So did our hero, who returned the compliment, saying she was tougher than he thought since she managed to recover so quickly from their mom's copper-headed belt. He was salty about him handing their mother that thing, but he decided not to bicker with him tonight like siblings. Instead, he offered to answer any of his questions, but of course not the ones that could affect his upcoming actions. Other than that, he could ask her anything. So the first question was if he truly was a version of him from the future. To that, the future self burst out laughing since he thought the kid already had everything figured out. But it turned out he was still not sure if all this was real or not, and assured him both of them were the same person. He just came back from 22 years in the future. The kid was also curious about that eye and why she didn't have it healed using magic. Turns out it was something called causal damage, which couldn't be restored using magic. Just like us, the kid had no idea what that meant, and his future self told him not to think too much about it since it was something she couldn't tell him just yet. Then came the third and most important question, which most of us had ever since we first saw her in the South Pole. What's up with those massive melons? And how did this new body of hers get like that in the first place? Turns out it was a compromise she made in exchange for power, and ended up like this. And from the looks of it, she didn't seem to mind either. She actually looked proud of herself. But there was a catch though, she couldn't turn back into her male form anymore. But she also told our hero not to worry about this stuff, explaining that the moment she traveled back in time, the world line shifted, which created a new timeline. Basically, she told him a whole lot of things that mostly went over my head. What I did make out though was that this was a new timeline, different from her future. So now our hero could make choices that could lead to a different future for him, where he didn't end up as a one-eyed baddie with massive honkers. But there was one thing she herself was very curious about, and it was the fact of how her past self used to look like. So she decided to take a closer look, and surprisingly, she found herself super cute, and because of that, the place started getting a whole lot steamier. Well, here we go. The girl wanted to know what it feels like to do it with herself, and apparently our Chad wasn't even trying to resist. I mean, who could? He was a boy at heart, after all. And look at those things. Before he knew it, the girl had him pinned to the bed, and he lost all strength to fight back. The last thing he saw was her lips getting closer to his face, as everything started getting fuzzy, and he completely blacked out. Cut to the outside, their parents were sitting in the living room watching television, completely unaware of what their son was doing to himself in his room. Just then he came out, surprising the woman since she thought both of them had already fallen asleep. So the girl reminded her about the beating she took not too long ago, and the pain wasn't letting her sleep. Yeah, she wasn't planning on apologizing for it either. Well, he already knew that much, so he changed the topic and asked why she was still up. Turns out both of them were planning to pull an all-nighter and complete a whole season of an anime, but her father fell asleep halfway through, and now she was stuck watching it all alone and was determined to finish it and see how the ending played out. But of course, the future self had to ask the dumbest question imaginable. Why not just skip to the last episode if she was so curious about the ending? But when she turned to the woman for an answer, she was already fast asleep on the couch. With nothing left to do, she sat with them to see what this anime was all about, and it turned out it was a romance story where the two lead characters went through a ton before finally reuniting in the end. Turns out our boy was actually a softie on the inside, and was tearing up watching both of them finally reuniting in the end. Or could it be it reminded him of something that happened in the future that was similar? Hard to tell just yet. After she was done, she got up and left the house, but not without leaving a note for her mother with the spoiler not to bother watching the ending since it was another boring, happy ending. Cut to some other part of the city, and our boy was dressed to kill, standing alongside his two subordinates waiting for news from one of their teams. Just then, they received a transmission from the team stationed at the lunar base, informing them of a fleet of magical girls heading their way along with two of their top 7 combatants and asking what her orders were. And the woman just told them to risk it all. Hearing her order, the person ended the call, and for some reason, all 3 of them huddled up talking like it was their last day on Earth, wishing each other farewell. Next panel, and a parasitic-looking creature was seen bursting out of their spacesuits, and the things started merging together, and within seconds, they took the form of a massive woman with tentacles for the lower part of her body. And without wasting any more time, the thing started attacking all of the approaching spaceships, and before they knew it, the whole fleet was destroyed, along with number 5 and 6 who were overseeing the whole operation. In another part of the building, number 0 was seen informing someone that all those magical girls were still alive, just trapped inside an unknown domain, and breaking it would require a large amount of time. She suspected the enemy was trying to weaken their combat strength by doing this. In front of her was the same trainer, who was asking if they should report this to the rest of the people, but the answer was no, since they were sure the enemy's target was the ritual items, and because they already had numbers 1 through 4 stationed at the Yi family palace, she instructed her to notify them and begin preparations for the summoning ritual immediately. Cut to the Ye family's Antarctic manor, where old man Ye Huan received the call from the bureau regarding their change of plans, and the man assured them he would get to it immediately. But guess what? He wasn't alone. Z was also there, and all this was our hero's plan from the start to force the bureau into starting the ritual ahead of schedule. And now that they had secured the palace, Z suggested the man keep doing as he was told, and his wife wouldn't be harmed in any way. Nervous, the man asked what they wanted him to do now and heard them instructing him to just prepare for the ritual as normal. After all, they were still waiting on the real guests to arrive. Cut to another part of the world, and Ye Lin was staring at her Rolex while nagging our boy about the time and how he was a whole 3 minutes and 12 seconds late. She asked what he had been up to, but then she turned toward him and noticed something odd about him. God damn, the future version of him really did him dirty with that one. Because of that, Ye Lin wasn't able to hold in her laughter and burst out laughing, asking what was up with that new makeover. But since our hero had no clue what she was talking about, and that he had been walking around the whole city looking like a walking doodle, he asked what she meant by that. Yeah, turns out last night, when that other version of him knocked him out with his charm, he took his sweet time painting him into a masterpiece. But the thing was, even his mother didn't say anything about the marker-covered face, and since he is a slob who rolled out of bed and came straight here without even bothering with a shower, he never noticed it himself. Just then, their third member also arrived, apologizing for being late. Turns out she took her hygiene much more seriously, so it took her some time to get ready. Oh yeah, and of course that massive backpack on her back was also the reason. Surprised, Yalin asked if she brought her whole house with her, to which she calmly explained that since they were going on a long trip, she made sure they were prepared and brought all the essentials along. Opening the massive bag, she showed them the thing jammed packed with medical supplies, survival gear, and rations meant to last them a whole month. But Ye Lin reminded her of what she instructed them yesterday, that they were not to bring anything with them. So Pinkhead told her it'll take them a whole month to get to that place, because the only way to get to the South Pole was by ship, so all of these things were necessary. Ye Lin, however, was confident she could get all of them to that place in just a couple of minutes and signaled the loudmouth behind her to get everything ready. Cut to the Ye family's underground facility, where the girl was proudly showing both of them their family's own private teleporter. Turns out there are only 5 of these things in the entire world, and 2 of them are owned by her family. The rest were with the Bureau, and this thing just happened to be connected to their second teleporter, which was in the South Pole, so they could easily use this to travel to that place in an instant. But both of them just had one question. Why on earth would they put something like this in the South Pole of all places? According to Ye Lin, they placed the second one there was because her her mother, loves penguins, which was a very weird reason if you ask me. Well, that was enough talk, so she told both girls to strap up because they were about to get teleported to see her parents, who were waiting for all 3 of them in their second mansion. Cut to the Antarctic manor of the Yef family, and someone was already waiting by the teleporter for the 3 girls, and judging by those 2 ponytails, I can already tell trouble. Even the 2.5 girls were surprised seeing these 2 individuals standing next to the teleporter. Yup, the same 2 girls who smashed our hero's head into the ground during their last encounter, and they were stationed here by our boy's future self. As for the 2 girls, they were informing the 3 of them to quietly follow them, because they had already subdued the 3 top rankers who were stationed here, and Yelin's parents were being held hostage as well. Yelin was surprised by everything, but our hero knew these 2 girls were trouble and warned them that they were the ones who were snooping around Yelin's house and were also the ones who knocked him out when he tried stopping them, so both of them needed to transform immediately. Seeing him stepping up to confront them, Ponytails reminded our boy what happened the last time they fought and suggested they behave and do as they were being told. But one thing she didn't know was that our hero had been training non-stop with the bald sensei, and thanks to his weird obsession with trucks, he was now a lot stronger than the last time they fought. Seeing that there was no avoiding a fight, both girls prepared to fuse together to drag all 3 of them to their boss. But before they could even start the merging process, our hero was already behind them. Terrified Ponytails, who was acting all cocky, turned around in shock, but before she could even fully react, our boy had already made his move, and damn, he didn't even hesitate. I just hope they can regenerate limbs. Terrified Ponytails turned towards our hero, unable to believe her eyes, asking how did he become so fast? But Redhead shouted for her to snap out of it and told her to use her other hand to merge before it was too late. But no way our hero was going to let that happen, so he shouted for Pinkhead to shoot. Next panel, bam! A powerful energy wave was shot straight towards the 2 girls, landing directly on their bodies. But our hero knew the fight wasn't over yet, so he told the girl to stay on her guard. As the smoke cleared, they saw Ponytail was still alive thanks to Redhead, who sacrificed herself to save her, giving them a chance to win. Just as Ponytails was about to merge with her, she noticed something touching her body. Looking down, she saw countless vines wrapping around her legs, trapping her in place, and because of that she let her guard down, which gave our hero the opening he was looking for. And with that, it was checkmate. Our hero managed to take out both girls in the most brutal way imaginable. After he was sure they didn't pose them any threat, he decided to question them and asked what was their purpose of coming here and where their director general was. But instead of an answer, he heard the girl apologizing to her director for getting careless. Our hero thought she was referring to him, so he told the girl to just answer what she was being asked. But then he heard a familiar voice from the back calling him little sister, and before he could even turn, everything went black. Fast forward, and our hero's future self was seen standing inside the manor's underground facility, along with Ye Huan, showing surprise at how they had managed to build such a massive facility underneath the ice, which was so well hidden that even she wasn't able to find its location in the Bureau's archives in all her years of searching. As for the man, he knew what they were about to do, so he hesitated before proceeding. So our hero reminded the guy they still have his wife and daughter hostage, so if he valued their lives, he would do as he is being told. The man knew he had no other choice, so he activated the thing while asking what was she planning on doing with something so dangerous. With that, the hatch started opening up, with the man asking the girl if she even knows what this thing could do. Our hero just answered he was well aware of it, which was exactly why they came to this place. After that, he turned toward the 3 girls tied up with ropes, and thank God the Ponytail and the Redhead were fine. I was afraid the artist was planning on getting rid of 2 more promising characters. Anyway, our boy asked Yelin if she was aware of what her father and the Bureau had been up to this whole time. Turns out she wasn't, so she remained silent. Seeing that, our hero decided to tell them everything, the reason they went to such lengths to get to this thing, and why they wanted to stop her father from going through with whatever he was planning. Turns out, these people had been secretly creating a weapon of mass destruction capable of wiping out nations, and this very same weapon was going to turn into a terrifying calamity, which these people were planning on releasing into the world to subjugate it for profits. But the thing was, a long time ago, before the appearance of calamities and magic in this world, these weapons were the ultimate deterrent. But after the appearance of those beings, humanity sealed away this technology and these weapons, fearing what might happen if they ended up turning into calamities capable of wiping out the whole world. The Bureau, on the other hand, never gave up on reclaiming this lost technology. They kept searching for these weapons and technologies, trying to recreate them once more. All of this was too much for the three girls to process, knowing that a weapon capable of wiping out entire cities existed, and the Bureau was hiding it from the rest of the world at the South Pole. But the future self assured them it was all true. The ultimate weapon which humanity once possessed had such terrifying power that it even surpassed all magic and existing calamities. And yup, a fucking nuclear bomb. These people had been recreating a nuclear bomb, but the girls had no clue what this thing was. On top of that, they couldn't believe this thing was more dangerous and powerful than magic. Future Self explained that the reason they don't know about this thing was because using some methods, humanity's collective memories, along with the history of this world, had been tampered with. But everything she said was true. This weapon, created by humans of the past, was more dangerous than any calamity in existence. She also told them about the many wars humanity had fought in the past, wars that claimed millions of lives, and how it was only after these weapons were brought into play that those conflicts finally came to an end, because these weapons posed a threat to all of humanity. But now, with the appearance of calamities, the disaster this thing was about to bring was unimaginable, because 2 days from now, the Bureau is planning on detonating one of these weapons, which would summon a nuclear bomb calamity. In the future, after this ritual was completed, the nuclear bomb calamity appeared after 17 seconds from the blast, after which humans saw a second sun in the sky, resulting in the death of countless humans because of the thermal radiation and the shockwaves that swept the globe. But that was just the first disaster. The second catastrophe followed immediately, in the form of crustal displacement, magnetic field deflation, atmospheric evaporation, which completely turned the surface of the Earth into an uninhabitable purgatory. Because of all that, humanity lost 90% of its population, and what remained were forced to live underground wearing protective suits. She explained that right now the nuclear bomb calamity was in a dormant state, still sleeping within its own domain, having already absorbed the death and emotions of billions of humans from the past. Because of that, it gained power beyond anyone's ability to stop it, meaning its next awakening would spell the end of humanity, and possibly the entire Earth. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, our boy asked if that was the reason they all came back to this world and went after the Bureau, and the answer was yes. To that, our hero asked if that was the case, then why did they take out so many people on the lunar base? They could have just told the Bureau the consequences of this summoning, and heard a voice from the side saying that wouldn't have worked. Turning towards the sound, they saw Yehuan explaining how this summoning ritual was proposed out of the blue and was immediately pushed forward. The Bureau even went so far as to summon all of the top 7 ranking members to coordinate the operation, but since his clearance level wasn't high enough, he wasn't allowed to know the full details of this operation. But he knows something big must have happened that forced them to take such a step, so in a situation like that, when their back was against a wall, they wouldn't have solely relied on the unproven words of a time traveler, so he was afraid there was no way of stopping this ritual anymore. Our future hero was surprised seeing that this man actually believed her story so quickly, and when asked the reason, she heard the perverted old man saying he can tell she was the future self of his idol. So even though her body became more feminine and she wasn't a lowly anymore, to him she was still his precious C. Yeah, Ye Lin almost ripped herself out of the ropes to beat this old man up for continuing to spew such nonsense in a serious situation like this. Ignoring them, our hero turned towards his future self and asked why did he go to such extents to tell them all of this. After all, he could have just taken care of everything with his own power. Turns out the 3 of them played a vital role in all of this because he needed their help with something important. She explained that the first step to stopping this ritual from happening was to get their hands on the password consisting of 8 English words, but the problem was even the upper management of the Bureau didn't know what this password was because it was temporarily generated using the central AI. See here folks, AI, I'm 90% sure this AI is the one behind everything. ChatGPT's rise to power. Anyway, she explained that using that password one can gain access to the missile controls, using which she could activate its safety self-destruct sequence, resulting in the Bureau giving up on the ritual. She explained they already have the first 4 words which she managed to obtain from her original timeline, but since they still needed the other half of the password, they attacked the lunar base to use a calamity that was locked in that place to deduce the remaining 4 words. But before she could tell them the last word, she was taken out by number 7, who was stationed inside that facility. After listening to the whole story, our hero asked if she wanted them to infiltrate the headquarters main servers to get her that last piece of that password. That was precisely what she wanted, That made our hero curious, since she was clearly a lot stronger compared to all of them combined. So why not just storm the place herself and tear it apart to find the password instead of going through all that trouble at the lunar base? Future Self answered he was right about that. She could easily take on even the strongest of the magical girls of this era, but that changes when she enters the headquarters of the Bureau, because that place contains a seal which nullifies her magic, resulting in her becoming powerless as an ordinary person. Pinkhead immediately picked up on what she was trying to say. She was afraid of the Calamity seal inside that place, which could only mean one thing. Her abilities come from calamities. She answered yes, but refused to share any further details about that topic, because if too much information about the future was revealed, this world's timeline might undergo unknown changes, and that was a risk she wasn't willing to take. After all of that was out of the way, she snapped her fingers and the rope tied around them shattered into pieces. This surprised Zai, so she asked the reason, but Future Self assured her it was fine. She trusts these three and instructed her to stay inside this manor with the old man to guard the nuclear bomb and make sure the seals on the two rankers they captured remain intact, since she can't risk alerting number 0 just yet. As for her, she was heading to the headquarters with these three. Turning towards our hero, she told him that if he still has doubts about him, he can always hand him over to the Bureau after they enter that island. But our boy wasn't planning on doing that, so he asked what her plan was and how can they help her get her hands on that password. Turns out, in order to save the world and the whole humanity, all three of them had to make the ultimate sacrifice, and that was to become idols. Yeah, you heard it right, idols. This story went from magical girls to pop stars in a second. Even the three girls were stunned hearing those words come out of her lips. Fast forward 2 days and it was already the day of the ritual. 2 hours and 13 minutes till detonation, and all three of the girls were getting ready to initiate the idol plan. Bam! Big reveal. New outfits, but none of them were happy dressed up in such a way. They stood there stiff as statues, dressed like pop stars when they were supposed to be saving the world. As for Future Hero, she was rather enjoying this new look for all of them. She explained that the reason they were dressed like this was because just the day before yesterday, an idol group was invited by the security division for a department party, so they were going to use that to their advantage to sneak right into the place. Our hero, though, wasn't very convinced about the whole plan, since that whole place was on full alert. So even if they put on these disguises, the security won't let them pass without any clearance, so his future self assured him not to worry about that part, since she already had it covered. Fast forward 2 hours left till detonation, and all three of them finally arrived at the elevator entrance of the place. And right outside the thing, two magical girls who were supposed to keep the place guarded were killing time drinking coffee. That is when they heard someone calling out to them. Seeing them standing there, Bluehead informed them that no one was allowed to pass through this point without special permission, and asked for their identities. That is when the curvy version of our hero stepped up, looking all cute, rocking that cat pose, introducing themselves as the Bouncing Love group who came here the day before yesterday for the party. And the excuse she came up with was that she dropped something important up there during the performance, so she just came here to retrieve it. And just to sell the act, the three awkward girls in the back also chimed in with that stupid dance or pose or whatever it was. And guess what? That actually worked. Their 2 days of practicing these moves paid off, and the one with the pink hair offered to go up there and fetch her that thing and asked what it was. Oh boy, things just got a whole lot weird here, but I'll try to keep it as family-friendly as possible. Oh, who am I kidding? I have no filters, so we're going full unfiltered from here on out. Here is what happened. After the performance, Bluehead called one of the girls to a private room, and somehow, the future self found out what they did in there. And what they did, you may ask. Bluehead made that girl take off her stockings and shoes so she could grovel at her feet like a puppy. Yeah, that was all it took. The blushing girl immediately told the girl to stop, saying she would take them up there right away. That surprised the pink-haired girl, since she was the innocent one of the gang, so she didn't know about stuff like that, and Bluehead wanted to keep it that way, so she told the girl it was fine. The thing they lost up there was pretty important, so she would take them up there herself and help them look for it. Meanwhile, the menace was smirking in the back, seeing the girl desperately trying to get this over with, telling Pinkhead to issue a retroactive special permit and register them as maintenance workers. Fast forward, and all of them were inside the elevator, making their way up the Sky Island with 1 hour and 15 minutes left on the clock till detonation. Arriving in the place, Bluehead informed the girls that the headquarters was under martial law right now, so even with her authority, she can only give them half an hour. After that time was up, regardless of whether they find the item or not, they must head down. Our boy told the girl she understands and thanked her for doing this for them, but Pinkhead in the back almost ruined everything by opening her mouth, asking what were they looking for again. But thankfully, Yellen stopped her just in time. As for our hero, he was curious as to know how he knew about what happened after that party, to which he answered he just took a guess. But still, how come that woman didn't recognize his face? That he wasn't that same person? Future Hero answered that this woman was a hardcore foot fetishist. She only recognizes feet, not faces. Yeah, no. Our hero was starting to get suspicious of the whole situation and was sure she was hiding something from him. As he was thinking that, Bluehead grabbed the future self by her arm and pulled her to the side. after which she started whispering into her ear about the three girls, since they clearly don't seem the brightest, and she was afraid that they might leak the information about what happened between them that day. So future self assured the girl not to worry. They might not be the brightest, but their lips are sealed. But that wasn't important right now. The main thing was she managed to buy them 30 minutes, which was more than enough time to find those things, and she wanted to make every minute count, and asked if she was willing to accompany her somewhere private, while those three look for those things. The girl immediately melted and without a second thought suggested that both of them tag along to find her privates, since they didn't have much time and it would be faster that way. She told her about a utility room nearby that could be locked from the inside, saying she was sure her items might have fallen there, and asked our hero if they should go there first to take a look. Next panel, bam! Both of them entered the room with the door to the room slamming shut behind them. As for our hero, he noticed a piece of paper that his future self slid into his hand before leaving with the women, and upon opening the thing, she saw that she wanted them to stay put for 5 minutes while she takes care of that woman inside that room. And by take care, she meant in a good way, because Bluehead was already trembling from whatever our Chad was doing to her. Man, his future self is a menace because she was toying with the section chief of this place while she struggled to force words out of her mouth. Seeing her stuttering, our hero told her to speak up clearly, otherwise she won't understand what she was asking for. Well, whatever he is doing, it's working. Better take notes, I guess. As for the poor trembling girl, she managed to force some words out of her mouth, asking our hero for her feet. That was all he wanted to hear. So he showed the girl what she had been asking for, telling her to do whatever she wants with them. And man, this part is just crazy. This blue-haired girl immediately dug in, and this girl is such a freak that she was able to tell our hero's feet feel different just by running her tongue over them. That's some skill if you ask me. Fast forward and the girl was completely out cold, drooling on the floor like a log, while the future self assured our hero she was fine, just knocked out by a drug Zai made for her, which relies on sweat to evaporate. And since this girl licked quite a bit of that stuff, she won't be waking up even if they throw her into a river. Well, anyway, with that out of the way, she suggested they start with phase 2 of the plan, but our hero wanted answers, so he asked if that was the same drug she used on him last night. Turns out it was. She wanted to make sure that thing worked on magical girls of this era, so she used our boy as a guinea pig to confirm it. Changing the topic, she brought out the blueprints to the place, telling the three girls to get ready, because she was about to tell them the whole plan. She explained that this headquarters was divided into 3 sections, with all the main stuff being on the surface of the island, including the central control room. Then comes the second section, which was the living area, consisting of restaurants, dormitories, that kind of stuff. Their target was the bottom section, also known as the storage area. She explained that this place has enough supplies stored for the headquarters for it to last several years, and since that part only has daily necessities, no one was stationed there, and the place didn't have much surveillance. Only magic elementals are inside that place, responsible for transport. So that's where they would be heading, because that place also has a terminal that connects to the main AI of this place, using which they could take over the system. Curious, Pinkhead asked how are they going to do that, because hacking into the system won't be so easy. Future Hero wasn't worried about that part because they won't be hacking into that system, since that thing was unhackable, and the Director General of the Bureau is the only person in this whole place with the authorization to access that AI and make it generate that password. And she happens to be a Director General herself. Well, Future Director General, but it's the same thing. So if they manage to reach that terminal, she could easily access that thing because she has the highest administrative authority over that AI. Both girls were shocked hearing that our boy became the Director General of the entire Bureau in the future, and asked how did someone like him get that position. Well, it was a long story, so she decided to save it for some other time, and reminded the girls they don't have much time left. The place they want to reach was exactly underneath their feet, and she needs their help in order to access it. With that, she started laying down the plan. Yellen was to use her silent mouse bullet to open a silent barrier, preventing any noise from this place from being heard outside. Then came our clumsy Pinkhead, who is going to use her beam cannon to bash through the 7 meters of concrete, making way for them to access that section of the island. And finally, our hero, who is the only one among them capable of aerial action. He was to fly all of them down there, because she was just a squishy human right now, and the 2 girls still didn't know how to fly. And that place was 33 meters deep, equivalent to 10-story buildings. After she was done speaking, Yaelin asked the girl how does she know so much about them, and the fact that she has a silent mouse bullet because she never told anyone about it. Turns out, even in the future, all 3 of them are best friends, and she knows almost everything about the 2 of them because they are really close. Pinkhead's face lit up upon hearing that, while Yaelin tried to hide her emotions. As for our hero, he knew she was just coaxing those 2 with her words. Cut to another part of the island, with 40 minutes left on the clock. Troublemaker Purple Head was reporting to number 0 about number 1, who sent a message from the South Pole that everything was set there and they can start the ritual at any time. But there was something that was bothering her, so she asked 0 if she could raise a concern. Number 0 gave her permission, so she reminded her that most of their rankers were either eliminated or trapped inside domains in space, resulting in their combat power being severely damaged, and going forward with this ritual at a time like this was too risky. So she suggested they postpone this whole plan for now and deal with the current threat instead, after which they could gather up their girls and then proceed with their main plan. After listening to the whole thing, Number 0 agreed with her concerns, admitting that the risks were indeed great, but even so, they can't stop this ritual. She told everyone that they were almost out of time, and if they failed to go through this plan, she was afraid that the whole of humanity and even the planet was destined for extinction. Cut to some other part of the place, and a cute little kitty noticed some rocks falling from the ceiling, so it looked up to see what was going on, only to get blasted into oblivion by Pinkhead's ridiculously overpowered beam cannon that tore through the whole place like it was made out of paper. And in came our boy with 3 beauties clutched tightly in his arms, with Yilin begging him to put her down already, because she was afraid of heights. Next chapter, and our hero was picking up some water bottles from one of the passing cats while asking his future self if it was okay to let these magic elementals see them. He answered it was fine because these things were only responsible for transporting and nothing else. Hearing that, he handed 1 bottle to Pinkhead for Yelin, so she would stop throwing up all over the floor, while telling her father was also afraid of heights. Hearing that, Yelin showed surprise because she wasn't aware of that, but Pinkhead interrupted them, telling her to forget about that and drink some water first. But the girl was going through an emotional dip, as she told everyone how her father kept so many secrets from her, that nuclear bomb and even the history of humanity. But Pinkhead simply patted her on the back, saying he probably did all that to protect her. After all, knowing things like that might have put her life in danger. As all that was going on, our boy was busy connecting to the AI, and he managed to succeed without any problem, after which he asked our hero if he won't go and comfort a girl in trouble. But our hero just answered he himself was a girl right now, so it doesn't matter. Hearing his answer, his future self leaned in closer, saying there was something important he was meaning to ask him. And when our hero heard what it was, he almost choked on the water, because guess what? In the future, one of those girls is going to become his wife. Terrified, he turned towards the guy, asking which one was it, but they got interrupted by the AI, who was ready to be fired up. So his future self decided to leave that story for some other time, promising to tell him when they are done here. As for the AI, what can I say? Artist has some weird fetishes. Anyway, after completing the scan, the AI took the form of our hero and started introducing itself as the Abnormal Transaction Management Bureau Artificial Intelligence. As for her version number, CNP1215, but she told all of them to just call her Xiaobai. Her appearance surprised the girls, so they asked what was up with that. Turns out earlier, the thing was scanning all 4 of the girls, and somehow it found out that 3 out of 4 people in this room think this appearance was cute, so it took this form. Yeah, our hero just stared at the 3 girls, since he never knew they looked at him with those kinds of thoughts. Turning back to the AI, she heard her asking the reason for summoning her into the storage area, and if they were doing inventory early this year, but the future hero told it that wasn't the case, instructing it to open the permission authentication interface. The thing refused at first, because only the director was authorized to access that interface. But then our hero entered the highest authentication command into the thing, and it realized that the one standing before it was the Director General herself. But even so, she was a little hesitant in opening that interface in a place like this. That surprised the 3 girls, and they wondered what was that about. And man, let me tell you, there was a reason the thing was hesitant, because it required a DNA sample of the director to open that thing, and I am 100% against what the artist did here, so I'm gonna skip this part. After she was done with that process, the hologram was completely out of breath, informing our boy that his highest permission has been activated, and with a smirk on its face told our boy that from now on, no matter what he orders her, she will obey. As for the ones behind them, yeah, they all had 3 different expressions on their faces, and all of them were of disgust. As for the culprit, she cleared her throat and instructed the hologram not to say such misleading things like that in the future. Getting to the point, she ordered the thing to pull up file number XYZ0312. The thing immediately got to work and pulled up the file, which was classified as top secret. It then informed everyone that the launch deployment had been completed 2 hours and 21 minutes ago and asked for their instructions. She told the thing to generate the launch command code and convert it to human language. The thing did as told and started reciting the code, which started with 15, wheel, forever, navy, 12, 18, and finally the magic word that she had been searching for, love. Just then, number 0 realized someone just took over their servers and ordered everyone to lock the whole place down, shut down the AI, and find these people immediately. Just then, the AI started glitching, and the terminal turned off on its own. But our hero wasn't worried, because she already had what she came for, so she prepared to leave. But before she could tell them the escape plan, our hero grabbed all 3 of them and started leaping towards the upper floor. Next panel, and the future hero was scolding our boy for acting without listening to the whole plan, explaining that the headquarters was probably on full lockdown right now, meaning the elevator was also sealed off, and the airship was probably under surveillance as well. Turns out her plan of getting out of this place was to teleport away, but the thing was, she could only use this ability once per day, so she was saving it for when they needed to escape. After setting the thing up, she told the girls to get ready, because they were leaving. But our hero for some reason told her to stop, since he has a question. But his future self reminded him they don't have time for that and promised to answer it when they are out of this place. But our hero wasn't listening. Turns out he noticed something strange about the whole situation and wanted to know if those command codes can really destroy the nuclear missile. His future self answered yes, but our boy noticed her backing towards the circle while saying that, and just as her foot was inches away from the thing, he suddenly vanished, and before his future self knew it, she was pinned to the ground. And now, with her fully restrained and only 10 minutes left on the clock, our hero changed his tone and asked the woman if the reason she came to the past was really to stop the nuclear explosion. This surprised the two girls, so they turned to our hero to ask what was going on and heard our hero confronting his future self about the password she had been talking about the whole time. Because when she ordered that AI to generate those words for her, she never mentioned anything about it being a password, but her specific words were to generate the launch command code and convert it into human language. And she was having a hard time accepting the idea that launch codes could be used to self-destruct a nuclear bomb. Besides, from what he can tell so far, that nuke never had any self-destruct function in the first place, and demanded she tell them everything. Hearing everything, his future self fell silent for a bit, after which she claimed the reason she had been calling the thing launch code back there was because AI wouldn't have understood what she meant if she used the word password. But in reality, she was just buying herself some time, and in the middle of her explanation, she shouted for all the magic elementals in the storage room to enter battle mode with just one command, and that command was to cut off her head no matter what it takes. As soon as that command was given, all the cute kitties turned into ferocious beasts, flying straight toward the second floor to execute that command. Seeing them coming, the girls immediately got on their guard, after which they transformed and started shooting at the things. Yailin launched her fire cat toward the creatures, while Pinkhead prepared to blast them to oblivion with her headcannon. And with that, they started taking out all the incoming enemies. And surprisingly, it didn't seem too hard to stop those creatures, because with just one blast, all those kitties were turned into mush. But then, just as they thought it was over, Firecat noticed something strange. The disintegrated particles of those cats came back to life and started merging together. And before they knew it, the thing turned into a massive albino tiger and squashed the poor Firecat under its claw with no mercy. After which it turned towards the two girls, and both of them started shivering, seeing the size of that thing. But just as the thing was about to shred them to pieces, something came flying through the air and tore through the creature's back, managing to rip a hole through its body and saved both girls. Looking back, they saw that it was our hero who reacted in time and using his staff saved both of his future waifus. Both girls, on the other hand, were still shaken from the whole ordeal, since they never expected those cute things to be able to do that. But just then, our hero realized they might have messed up, because while he was busy saving the girls, one of the cats managed to sneak up on him and carry out the order, and was now holding Future Self's head in his paws. Before our boy could stop it, the thing tossed it into the air, and it landed right on the magical circle, and the thing activated immediately, not even giving them any time to do anything. As for the two girls, they just sat there watching the whole thing in horror, unsure of what to make of this. But our hero shouted for them to snap out of it because that woman was still alive, and told them to get into that circle immediately. Cut to the Antarctic base, where Zai and Fusion Girl were discussing our hero and how he was the past self of their general. As for the lucky guy under them, not sure why, but instead of enjoying the situation like any sane man would, he looked genuinely stressed, as if being used as furniture by two beautiful women was a bad thing. As for Zai, she called Fusion Girl dumb for not even realizing that sooner, even though both of them looked exactly the same. Furious, Fusion Girl snapped at Zai, telling her not to call her an idiot. Just then, Redhead appeared from her flames, asking both girls if they knew which loop do they think this was. Turns out, none of them knew how many times they had already tried with this plan, because their memories always get wiped out after each loop. Only their general knows the whole details. Zai, however, was sure that this time the director was planning on making sure they succeed, because she even sacrificed little Lan and the others in space to trap those magical girls. Hearing Lan's name, the Fusion Girl's face softened with sadness, so Zai apologized to her because she was close to that girl. Fusion Girl told her not to worry about it and with a smile, assured her all of them were going to meet again soon anyway. Just as she said that, the magic circle appeared in the room, so both of them stood up to greet their general and the girls. But the moment they saw the state she was in, both of them froze. Fusion Girl especially lost it, completely freaking out when only her head came popping out of the circle. As she was distracted with that, our boy immediately got ready to stop them and leaped straight towards the head to crush it into pieces. But Zai, realizing something was up, immediately activated her ability to stop him and managed to pin him to the ground thanks to her gravity magic. But our hero refused to stay down and started powering his way through her ability to get to that head before it was too late. Zai herself was surprised to see how strong this kid was and what is up with her constantly calling our boy her mom. Wait, come to think of it, she does look awfully similar to our hero when you look closer. Don't tell me she is our boy's biological daughter. Anyway, let's leave that part for the artist to cook because Fusion Girl already had both waifus restrained, and neither one of them were able to break free of her grip. Just then, the future protagonist's power started returning to her body, and her eyes suddenly snapped open. And right before everyone's eyes, she began regenerating the lower part of her body, and within seconds, she was back at 100%. Realizing that she managed to win, she smirked at our hero, commenting on how he had come just a little short this time. Furious, our hero asked the reason for doing this, even knowing what might happen if that calamity comes to life, and asked if she had been lying about the whole thing from the start. Future Self answered, she wasn't lying about the whole thing. The extinction brought by that nuclear bomb calamity was real. The only part she lied about was her trying to stop it. And now, with no one left to stop her anymore, she ordered Z to tie them up, while Fusion Girl was to come with her to start the process, and ordered her to generate the safety key. The girl did as told, and using her flames created 2 launch keys for the nuke. After that part was taken care of, they approached the interface to input the coordinates to designate the drop point for the nuclear missile, which turned out to be the 3rd X-Ginyungang Municipal City area. The moment our hero heard that address, he froze, because that's where his home was, where his parents lived. But ignoring him, the 2 girls walked up to the control panel and inserted the launch keys to start the launch of the nuclear bomb. Furious, our boy asked the reason for doing this and why she was launching that thing on their own home, knowing full well that's where their parents were. Instead of answering his question, Future Self mocked the kid for being so weak, since he of all people should know that words were not enough to stop something like this, and suggested that if he really wanted to stop her, he should use his strength instead. But not like it was going to matter anymore, since the thing had already activated and was flying towards the hatch. As for the other 3, all of them froze as they realized they were too late to stop the women, and now millions were going to die, and the worst part? All of this was made possible because they were the ones who helped these people. The woman, however, after she was done with that part, contacted her other girls who were stationed at the city center, informing them about the first phase of the plan being a success and told them to be ready. Turning towards Fusion Girl, she instructed her to follow that thing to make sure the Bureau doesn't try to intercept it while it's making its way to the drop point. Zai was to stay here and watch over the 4 and make sure they don't try anything funny. As for her, she was heading out herself and instructed the girls to meet up at the rendezvous spot immediately after that explosion. After she was gone, Zai walked up to our boy and told him not to struggle, since those things tied around his body were magical bindings, something he with his current strength won't be able to break out of. And surprisingly, she told the kid they have no other choice and have to do this no matter what, assuring him the director would explain everything to him soon enough. Yeah, right, like our hero was falling for another one of their lies, so he told the woman to screw herself. As Z was distracted with him, old man Ye Huang was playing his tongue game on the tape tied around his mouth, and after a few seconds of working at it, he successfully managed to free his lips. At the same time, the shockwaves created from that bomb launching out of the facility shook the entire place, causing the whole room to tremble violently. But not caring about that, he turned towards the 2 girls and said something which they weren't able to hear because of that noise. Well, not hear maybe, but Pinkhead knew how to read lips, so she was able to make out what the guy was trying to tell them. So she took in a deep whiff and using all her lung capacity, started screaming, cutting through that loud noise as she told the 2 girls there was still time to stop that thing while it was still making its way towards its target. Yeah, Zai realized this was bad, since this was the reason she specifically told Fusion Girl to tie that man's mouth, but that stupid girl messed up even such a simple task. As for our girl, yeah, that was all she wanted to hear, so she started straining against the ropes tied around her, and bam! Somehow she actually managed to break herself out of those bindings, which was the last thing Z needed right now. So she got ready to stop the girl using her gravity magic, but then her attention was drawn towards one of our girl's eyes, which was glowing with a bright yellow light. Yep, it was official now. Z was fucked because that glow in her eyes, yeah, this isn't any normal light. That girl just awakened to the next stage of her awakening. Something which should be impossible given the fact that in the future it took her years to get to that level. Our boy, though, who was done with everything, just muttered the word die from his mouth, and that hand that was keeping him pinned to the ground suddenly turned toward the girl's own throat, and she started choking herself. But our hero knew there was no time to waste anymore, so he leaped out of the facility to try and catch up to that bomb and stop it. Luckily, that thing was letting out a trail of thick cloud smoke, and thanks to that, he knew exactly where the thing was headed. So he summoned his staff, got into his stance, and boom, he dashed straight in that direction at full speed. Cut back to Zai, who was contacting Fusion Girl to warn her about what was coming her way, and told the woman not to take the girl lightly this time since she managed to awaken her golden eyes. Meanwhile, in the headquarters, one of the guards picked up an unidentified object heading towards their city through the satellite, which originated from the Ye family's Antarctic manor, so he called out to Purple Head. The woman immediately realized it was a missile and asked number 0 for her orders and if they should use intercept missiles to stop the thing. The answer was a no, since those things won't be able to stop that missile, and she summoned their little Xiaobai instead. She instructed the girl to release the sealed weapon 30, covering the Antarctic region, which was a large-scale electromagnetic pulse device. As for the rest of the people, they had no clue what was even going on, so they tried asking Purple Head, but turns out even she had no clue, so she told the man to shut up and just watch. Skip to Fusion Girl, who was receiving a message from Zai warning her about the danger coming her way, but because of the electromagnetic pulse, the message got cut off before she could hear the whole thing. Not thinking much of it, she got ready to initiate her part of the plan, which was to guide this thing towards the drop point manually, using her powers. So she got to it and began rewiring the massive missile using her magic. But in the middle of doing so, something flew past her and went straight through her arm. Looking back, she saw it was our boy, who should have gone for the head and ended it quickly. But hey, what's the fun in that, right? Despite losing her arm, Fusion Girl wasn't afraid, since unlike last time, she was in her ultimate form, meaning there was no way she would be able to catch her by surprise like how she did earlier. Yeah. No, she didn't even finish those words before red liquid was seen spraying out of her mouth. Looking down, she saw her own hand piercing through her stomach, and she froze since she did not even see when that girl moved. But that wasn't even the scariest part, since for some reason she wasn't able to heal this wound, and she had no idea why. Looking up, she noticed those glowing eyes staring at her and realized what was going on. But by then it was already too late to do anything, since our girl was already behind the woman to deliver the finishing blow to end it once and for all. But somehow, using what little strength she had left, she managed to leap out of the way. Yeah, turns out that was a big mistake, since our girl's main target wasn't her but the bomb itself. Refusing to give up after coming so far, she shouted for her sister to protect that thing no matter what, but doing so would mean they would get separated, so she hesitated. But Fusion Girl reminded her of their mission and asked her not to worry about her. As they were still busy arguing, a massive explosion engulfed the whole bomb, taking both of them along with it. But from that dust, our boy saw the thing flying out still intact and covered in flames, which was the power of one of those sisters, who managed to activate it just in time. Not giving up, our hero leaped at the giant thing once more to find a way to break through the fiery shield and destroy it. As for the girl herself, she was watching the whole thing from a distance, and knowing her sister won't be able to stop him for long, she activated her final trump card to try and stop him and give her sister a chance to escape. Just then, as our boy was about to swing his staff, something icky and slimy wrapped itself around his arm. Surprised, he turned around and found a massive tentacle calamity hovering behind him. Before he had a chance to process what was happening, the thing trapped him inside a magical barrier. Furious, he punched the thing to break himself free. But to his shock, no matter how hard he hit the thing, it wasn't even budging. Just then, she suddenly heard a familiar voice in her head and she froze. Cut to the city, and turns out she wasn't the only one hearing that voice. Every single person in the city was able to, and it was a heads up to all of them that in 3 minutes, their whole city, including the people living there, are about to turn into barbecue. She told the people about the nuclear bomb that was flying towards all of them, but since none of them knew what a nuclear bomb was, she decided to give them a quick science lesson in the last few minutes they had, and explained that the weapon utilizes atomic fusion to generate terrifying energy, so if they are thinking of fleeing the city, then it is already too late, and suggested they use the chance to say goodbye to their loved ones because running was not an option for them anymore. She further explained that thing contains 27 hydrogen-cobalt warheads that would explode evenly across the entire city, each one generating a core temperature of 500 million degrees Celsius at the moment of explosion, followed by shockwaves propagating at supersonic speeds, creating an absolute death zone with a radius of 17 kilometers. But it wasn't all that bad, since according to their calculation, only 94.1% of the population, which was roughly 34.8 million people, would be wiped out by that blast. Other than that, all was good. As for why she was doing all this, it was simple. They are the sacrificial lambs who deserve to know why they were being sacrificed in the first place. Turns out, in her timeline, the nuclear bomb calamity came into being because of the Bureau, who detonated that thing on an uninhabited island, resulting in no casualties. But there was just one problem. The calamity that came into existence was several folds more terrifying than the nuclear bomb itself, since the moment it opened its destruction domain, nearly 1 billion people lost their lives, bringing her world to the brink of destruction. And this was the main reason she chose all of them as sacrifices, since she wanted to save those billion people. She told everyone she has already tried countless times to prevent that tragedy from happening, but every time the result was the same, the world being destroyed by the calamity. As for stopping the calamity immediately after the bomb detonated, that wasn't an option either, since they already tried that. The thing immediately opens its domain since it is born immature, so the only option left is to let that calamity be born in its mature form, which would not immediately open its domain right away, giving them an opening to stop it. And to do that, they would need to sacrifice 30 million people, and that is the reason their city was chosen, since this was the only place where it was guaranteed this plan would work. Cut back to our girl who, after hearing the woman's plan, was livid, and in her anger, she shattered the massive barrier. But the tentacle calamity wasn't done, so it swung its claw towards the kid to try and end him. By then, our hero was over his limit, because that woman even sacrificed their own parents, the only people who stuck with him when his life was going to shit. and because of that, he wasn't planning on forgiving himself. So he leaped out of the way and tore through the giant body of the monster, leaving behind a gaping hole. And it was just as he had feared, it was already too late to do anything, because the missile had already reached its target. The story shifts to two siblings who were waiting for their parents to return home. That was when the boy called out to his sister, and when asked what it was, the kid pointed out the window, telling his sister he could see a shooting star outside. Sure enough, as the girl peeked out, she saw something streaking through the sky, and mistaking it for a shooting star, she asked his sister to make a wish. The girl did as instructed and closed her eyes, and when her brother asked what she wished for, the girl, with that innocent smile on her face, answered. She wished that their family could stay together forever. And then it finally happened as the second sun lit the whole city, and before the girl could even finish those words, everything went white. Cut to the outside, and the entire city was seen being lit up like a blazing second sun as all those warheads detonated, incinerating everything in their path. Cut to the headquarters, where everyone was staring at the satellite feed in disbelief, because out there where once a bustling city stood, the whole place was reduced to nothing but a wasteland in mere seconds. And in the middle of it all was a home hovering in the air, and future hero was seen walking up to it. That was when she heard a strange voice coming from the side, so she quickly turned to see what it was, only to find our boy hovering in the air. And no, those wings aren't the only thing new here, since the guy had completely lost it and his whole body was getting covered in those scales. That actually surprised his future self, since she never expected herself to awaken so quickly. On top of that, with such deep resentment, our hero, on the other hand, who was using what little sanity was left in him, was recalling everyone he lost, all because of that woman, his family, his friends, and no, she wasn't planning on letting her walk out of this place with her life anymore. So in her anger, she summoned her staff, imbued it with magic, and hurled the thing straight at the woman to end her. Next panel, boom, a massive explosion shook the whole place, engulfing his future self in flames. But as the dust cleared, the woman was still standing there with not even a scratch on her body, and was telling the kid he wasn't ready for that power just yet. So to stop him from being consumed completely by that power, she zoomed behind the girl to stop her, with last words telling the kid she can't die yet since this world still needed her. And using her own power, she did something. And for our girl, everything went completely black. The story fast forwards a couple of hours, and our hero was seen opening his eyes to a heavenly sight as he was being crushed under the hopes and dreams of many men. Yep, that's no hallucination. The dude is straight up seeing this. As for who this woman is, no idea. She appeared out of nowhere, and because of that, our boy himself was confused. Furious, he shoved the woman off him and demanded she tell him who she was, how he got here, and most importantly, what she did to him while he was unconscious. Turning around, he saw his future self, who had been watching over him while he was asleep, and was telling him how he lost control over himself because of that power and almost turned into a mindless killing machine. As for this place, this is the domain of the nuclear bomb calamity. To that, our boy had just one question: where was this nuclear bomb calamity? Turns out she was right in front of him. Yeah, that was all he wanted to hear, so he pinned the woman to the bed to end her and finish this whole charade once and for all. But according to his future self, that was pointless, since even if he takes out that woman, nothing will change, since she wasn't their real target. But our boy refused to believe anything that came out of her mouth. Future self knew that would be his answer, so she decided to explain to him what was really going on. The one he was trying to take out was just an incomplete form of the real calamity, so even if he takes out that body, the threat won't completely disappear. She will just fall into silence again, and wait for the next time another such event occurs. After she was done speaking, she asked the kid if he wanted the sacrifices of all the people who lost their lives today to go in vain. But our hero still refused to trust her. His future self answered he didn't need to trust her, he just needs to understand that if he takes out that woman, it would perform a time reversal, meaning next time when he appears inside this home, she would just end him before he regains consciousness. Frustrated, he released her throat, but for the woman that was a new experience, and let's just say she didn't hate it. Okay, so now comes the real twist. Turns out, just taking out millions of people to summon this thing in her voluptuous form wasn't enough. There was still one more step they needed to complete, and by they, she means him, and there is a very important reason for that, and I will try to put it in as simple words as possible. He needed to clap some cheeks so the woman could give birth to the real calamity, which would be the complete form and the one they needed to take out. Yup, so when I said he needed to do it, I meant he needed to do her. And the reason he was chosen for such a sacred task was simple. His future self doesn't possess the power of Ding Dong anymore, but he does, and according to her, he was the only male alive with the power to make that happen. But our innocent little hero still had no idea what she wanted him to do, so he asked the woman to clarify. Well, she didn't need to clarify anything, since the nuclear calamity herself took the initiative and told the kid it was just how humans do it, and asked him to follow her lead. Yeah, right, follow her lead. The kid wasn't following anyone's lead, and to show the woman he wasn't a rookie who needed instructions, he broke himself free and pinned her to the bed instead, and the rest was a blur. You can use your own imagination to find out what happened after that. All I'm saying is that whatever that fool was doing in there, it was making that whole damned house glow like a light bulb. Cut to the next chapter, and everything suddenly changed. The house was gone, and they were surrounded by massive spears. But that wasn't the only new thing in the place. On top of one of those massive spears was a person, the one they had been waiting for all this time, the true nuclear bomb Calamity, who was showing surprise that in just 10 short millennia, humanity developed so much so that they even built some gadgets in the ceiling, and by ceiling this woman meant space, since she somehow found out she was being watched through that thing. Cut to the headquarters where the man was informing Purple Head that all their satellites had been shot down by someone, and the woman immediately realized this was the work of that Calamity, which according to her was even at a higher level than an S rank. Back to our boy who was going for the woman to finish her off, and just as he got in range, he swung that massive thing and managed to land a direct hit on the female's face. But the thing was his weapon wasn't able to penetrate the shield covering her body. Not giving him any time to recover, the woman simply raised her hand, activated her weakest attack called Nuclear Energy Chain Reaction, and flicked her finger. Next panel, boom. Our hero was hit by an absurdly powerful wave of energy and he went plummeting back at the ground and crashed right next to his future self. But somehow he was still alive. Well, barely, because damn, that woman wrecked our boy's whole face. And no, this isn't her own power that is resurrecting him, he's literally dead. The reason he is able to stand back to his feet is thanks to his future self, who used her own power to heal his body in time. And she warned the kid not to move until the healing process is over. Since this attack, the woman just hit him with effects of body at the cellular level, destroying every single atom. So right now, his body was barely able to maintain its form, and if he moves one more time, the resurrection will fail completely. After she was done explaining, she asked the kid to leave the rest to her and just watch, since this was the perfect chance for her to see what kind of enemies she was going to be facing in the future. As for the nuclear lady, she was done playing games, so she got ready to destroy this whole planet with one last attack. But before she could do anything, the future protagonist uttered the words, "Disordered energy release prohibited," and all that energy that was being gathered on the palm of her hand suddenly started dissipating into nothing. Although she was surprised, the woman wasn't impressed, and the reason was she was still confident she would be able to take her on. So she launched that same attack from earlier at the girl. But then again, instead of moving or trying to stop the attack, she just said the words "go," and that massive beam of energy suddenly changed course and shot towards the sky instead. And just to show how powerful that attack was, it literally tore through the surface of the moon, leaving behind a massive crater on its side. Back on Earth, in that very split second, the future protagonist zoomed behind the nuclear lady and whack, decked her on her face so hard that her jaw caved in, resulting in her turning into a meteorite and being smashed onto the ground, followed by a massive explosion created by the impact. But future self knew something like that wasn't nearly enough to stop an entity of that level, so she dropped down for round 2. Sure enough, from that massive explosion she saw the woman walking out, and despite her head literally turned into paste, the woman was able to speak. But now, since she finally realized the person she was facing wasn't someone to be taken lightly, she activated her second ability, resulting in those massive spears being lifted into the air. Next panel, bam, Power Ranger style Susanoo, but she was calling it Authority Manifestation Nuclear Energy. Yeah, no, our girl wasn't impressed, so she summoned her own Susanoo, an emphasis on very, healthy Susanoo. And with that, the Battle of the Goliaths began, as both sides charged at each other, and despite fighting with her fists, future self Susanoo was able to hold its ground on equal footing with the Fusion Lady's summon. As for the planet, yeah, the whole thing was literally ringing like a drum because of the shockwaves created by their clashing. As for the one stuck in the middle, he was barely able to hold his body together because of the power leaking out of their fists. At the end of it, this is what was left of the nuclear lady, and no, this isn't fatal for her. For her, this is only like 5% of her health that got chipped away after that last clash, and the woman was still confident that future self won't be able to stop her, since it was just a matter of time before she destroys this whole planet and her along with it. But future protagonist had other plans, so she prepared to get serious. Yeah, you heard that right, serious. This woman had been toying with the nuclear lady this whole time, and to prove to the woman she wasn't messing around anymore, she did something, and multiple chains appeared out of nowhere, snapping tight around the nuclear lady. And these were no ordinary chains. This is something called the progenitor's power, something immortals shouldn't be able to wield. Next panel, and both of them were inside future self's domain, where she saw a massive eyeball with millions of eyeballs hovering all around it, and this was one of her most powerful attacks, which she used countless times in other timelines to stop this monster. Well, no, I guess it wasn't her domain, or maybe it was, but was so powerful that even half the city got pulled into it. The thing was so massive that it made the floating island look like a pebble in front of it, and according to the people watching the scene, that thing was nearly the size of the damned moon, which shouldn't be possible since an entity of that mass appearing would destroy the gravitational balance of the Earth-Moon system, but somehow it was still stable, which could only mean one thing. This thing was nothing but the mere reflection of the real deal. As for Nuclear Lady, watching the thing, she realized this was her end, so she didn't bother trying to free herself. Sure enough, a massive rift appeared behind the woman, tearing through the fabric of reality, and from within, two ginormous fingers appeared going straight toward her. Seeing the things closing in, the woman knew exactly what she was looking at, something she could never hope to overcome, even if she burned through her whole power, so she accepted her fate with a promise she would return once more. And next time she promised she was going to restart this world. And those were the last words that came out of her mouth before everything fell silent. As soon as the lady was deleted, the massive eyeball also started to disintegrate, and just like that, it was all over. But just to double check, our boy asked his future self if they won, and the answer was a yes. Then came the second question. Where did she teleport all the people from the city to, since he knew they were still alive? That actually surprised future self, since she never expected him to figure that out so quickly. Turns out, during their conversation with that monster, he heard that woman saying that the desert they were standing on was a fake, and that was the thing that gave it away. Future self told the kid he was right. Turns out there was a city-wide teleportation formation beneath the whole city, which was designed to activate the moment the city suffered an attack. So she just used that formation, juiced it up with enough magical energy for it to work on the whole city. And that plan worked. Since the only thing she needed was the fear of those people to trick that calamity into thinking it was real, and because of that, it manifested in its complete form. With that part out of the way, our boy asked another question that was bugging him. Who was the one who left that magical formation underneath the city, and why? Yeah, turns out that was an answer she couldn't give him at the moment. Seeing her making that face, our boy also knew there was no need to press her for that answer, so he decided to drop that for now. His future self apologized, since passing information from the future, which doesn't exist in the past, could cause the world line to tilt irreversibly. Our boy couldn't care less about that anyway, so he asked another question. Why did he need to do what he did with the other Nuclear Lady for her true form to appear? And why did she tell him back then that he was the only male capable of doing it? Well, turns out he never needed to do any of that. The woman was just messing with him. That lady he did those things to was already in her complete form. She just needed her personality to switch, which would have happened on its own even if he weren't there at the time. Yeah, no, our boy wasn't exactly happy about that, so he demanded the woman explain herself. Turns out he just seemed way too wound up back then. Like his brain would explode from all that anger, so she figured he should release all that energy into that woman instead, so he could think with a level head. Next panel, and he was asking the woman about another thing. He heard that Calamity say that humanity was the cells of a traitor, and asked what that was about. And the answer to that question, he wasn't ready for. Turns out, humans themselves are a type of calamity. She explained to the kid that in the past, all of these calamities were created by an entity known as the progenitor, and all of them lived in harmony, until one day when one of those calamities betrayed the progenitor. Turns out she herself has no idea what actually happened back then, but during that time, that betrayal resulted in the progenitor going missing, and somehow the other calamities were also driven into the gap between worlds, where they are currently sleeping. And with all of them gone, the calamity that betrayed the progenitor monopolized the world and transformed itself into countless individuals, which were scattered all across the world. Over the span of countless years, those individuals continued to multiply their existence, develop their own civilizations, and the result of all that was what he sees today. In simple words, all the humans present in the world were once part of that one calamity. The original plan of that calamity was that the humans would continue to live happily on Earth. But a few decades ago, something happened when a person made a contract with a sliver of the progenitor's consciousness that was still remaining in this world. And that was the day the safe era for humanity ended, because the progenitor's remaining consciousness woke up the calamities sleeping between worlds. So over time, those calamities with weaker magical power located in subspace were able to pass through the gap and were being drawn to this world through human emotions, and the way they manifested was by relying on the things created by humans. And just like humans, most calamities don't share one mind. They exist as separate individuals, each doing their own thing, but deep down they all carry the same instinct, a drive to destroy humanity, something that was carved into them by the progenitor. After that backstory, she told the kid that after taking out the Nuclear Lady, there were 5 special calamities that were still active, which are part of the original 7 calamities created by the progenitor, and humans are the 6th special calamity. As for the remaining special calamities, another thing that makes them different from a normal S-rank calamity is that they still possess the memories of what they were and what happened to this world before they were forced into slumber. In that subspace, those calamities had already chosen the concepts they would latch onto based on the characteristics of their authority. And just like with the nuclear calamity, the moment that concept appears in the real world, it immediately becomes their vessel to manifest. After she was done speaking, our hero asked the reason for telling him all this, since earlier she said she can't share things from the future. And if this information won't affect this timeline, the answer was no, since all this information is already known because the Bureau already possesses it. And that is one of the reasons they made the mistake with the nuclear explosion. Turns out, over the past few decades, the calamities have been getting stronger and stronger, which was already a problem for the Bureau. But a few days back, a calamity of an abstract concept appeared for the first time, and the Bureau, mistaking it for a special calamity, wanted to use the ultimate weapon in their hands to deal with it. But what they didn't realize was that the weapon itself would end up becoming the vessel for that calamity's manifestation. That was easy enough to understand, but he still had a question. Where did the Bureau and the contractors who gave powers to special girls come from? And if they were also a type of calamity? Not to mention that scumbag from the prophecy who would awaken the power of the magical girls that the rat mentioned, who would bring an end to this world. That was something he needed to find answers to himself. Since she couldn't disclose that information, all she could say was that he shouldn't trust any history regarding the Bureau and the contractors, because humanity's collective memories had been tampered with, making that history inaccurate. As for the prophecy by the contractors, she explained that the contractors don't give any powers to the humans. Instead, the item which they use awakens magical powers inside a person which was already present there, and that thing acts as a trigger that unlocks the power of the calamity buried within the human body. But the problem is, this triggerable power only exists within female bodies. No one knows the reason, but according to her, this is a type of self-defense mechanism for humans. But if somehow a male obtains magical powers, they would open the path to awakening something far more dangerous, just as he did today, when he lost control over himself because of his rage and almost became the entity which once existed as a whole. In other words, all humans would disappear and return to a single entity if that were to ever happen. And this is the end those contractors fear, and what that prophecy about a male awakening magical powers is all about. Well, that was enough of that. She was done saying what she had to say. Now she herself had a question. What if one day comes when he crosses the red line of awakening and is about to become that whole that would end all humans? Would he commit suicide for the sake of the humans? The answer was simple. If his mother and father were still alive, then yes, he wouldn't hesitate to end himself to keep them safe. So his future self hit him with another question. What if they weren't alive? Our boy answered, then he won't have a reason to live, so he would still choose to end himself if it saves humanity. That was exactly the kind of answer she wanted to hear. So with a smile on her face, she asked the kid to end her, because she was almost at that point. The kid froze hearing those words and asked the woman to clarify what she was trying to say. Turns out, in 10 minutes, if she is not deleted, all of humanity will become a single whole. So now only he has the power to end her, because with her current existence status, she could only be executed by either the progenitor's authority or another version of herself. Turns out, after she defeated the nuclear calamity, all her powers got transferred to her instead. So now if she perishes, everything that happened in the past few days, as well as the concept of the nuclear bomb itself, would be erased from this world, and this world line would return to its proper track. Our boy asked if she was saying everything that happened these past few days would disappear. The answer was a no. This world line will automatically provide another explanation for the events, so no, everything that already happened will not change. And to end it all, she asked our hero to remember 3 things after she was gone. The first was that out of the 5 calamities sleeping in the other space, 1 had already appeared by his side, but she couldn't say who it was. All she asks of him is that he don't trust anyone. Second, the subordinates who followed her to this timeline all used authority from the same origin as her, so they would perish along with her, but among them, only Black doesn't possess her authority, so she will continue to lurk in this world, preparing for something more important that was to come in the future. So when that time comes and Black appears in front of him one day, no matter how strange it seems, he needs to believe what she says. And finally, the most important thing of all, time can never flow backwards. This is one thing he needs to remember, because not even the progenitor can reverse time. That was all too much for our boy to take in, so he reminded the woman she herself traveled back from the future. She just answered he will know the answer to that in time, and asked him to just remember these 3 things, otherwise all these sacrifices will be in vain. Until then, he needs to keep thinking and never stop. Cut to Antarctica, where the 2 girls finally came up with a plan to free themselves and escape. And apparently that plan included using Pink Head as a battle ram, or to be more specific, that massive head of hers, to smash Zai's ribcage. But just then, something completely unexpected happened, as the girl just phased through the woman instead. After everything that happened, that was the last thing they were expecting to see today. As for Pink Head, turns out she wasn't holding back on that jump, so she ended up slamming her head on the wall instead. And the reason this was happening, well, you can figure it out for yourself, because Zai also used the same authority as the future protagonist, so her disappearing meant they had succeeded in their mission. So, in the end, she turned towards the girl and apologized, saying they really did their best, and the last words they heard from that girl was an apology as she completely got erased from existence. Following that, the magical ropes that had all of them restrained also started to disappear, and then it happened. Pink Head had no clue what they were doing in this place, or how they got there. And no, it wasn't because she hit her head and lost her memories. because just as Yaelin tried telling the girl what they were doing here, she herself froze because she couldn't remember either. Suddenly, pervy old man spoke up with that cheerful attitude of his, reminding the girls it was something about a meteorite by the name of Poached Egg that was heading towards Earth, so they came to Antarctica to take refuge. Cut back to their main manor, where a couple of maids were heard showing relief when they heard the news that the Yev family was safe and were taking shelter in Antarctica. And inside the place, Bobby was seen walking out of a room, asking what all this commotion was about. And you may be wondering why all these maids are showing surprise seeing his face. Well, turns out this absolute buffoon had been asleep the whole time, and by whole time I mean 6 whole days. Remember when he came to have some drinks with the old man? Yeah, he had one too many drinks and passed out and had been sleeping in this place ever since, while the girls were risking their lives to save everyone. The woman told the stupid guy how his phone kept ringing non-stop this whole week, and when they tried waking him up, he didn't even budge, and then told the guy about a meteorite that smashed into Xinyungang City and flattened the whole area completely. Cut to the lunar base where the backup had finally managed to arrive to save the survivors. And it was the same story there. A meteorite that was set on course for Earth grazed past the moon as well, destroying everything in its path. And since things seemed to be under control on the moon, numbers 1 to 4 returned back to Earth. As for number 7, turns out she was also alive. Well, barely, but alive. She had a massive hole in the middle of her stomach, and the girls were apologizing to the woman for taking so long to arrive, and their excuse was their aircrafts got blocked by space garbage. But here is the thing, Redhead had no clue what these women were talking about, because she was 100% sure all this was done by a person and not a meteorite. But the girls obviously refused to believe that and told the woman she got hit by a super high-speed object that was following the meteorite when she was trying to stop that thing, and thinking that the woman must be hallucinating from excessive blood loss, they suggested she focus on resting instead. As for the headquarters, a man was seen running to report to Purple Head about the massive amount of teleported personnel that appeared inside the World Tree, and their total count was over 10 million and still counting. That obviously shocked the woman, because 10 million people being teleported to their island out of nowhere made 0 sense. But then she remembered something and froze for a second, and with a confused look, she asked the man what they were all doing in this place anyway, to which the man answered about something she said to them, that they would be monitoring the meteorite's trajectory from this place or something, and the woman had no clue when she even said those things. Same thing with the civilians, who were trying to figure out what happened and how they got there. Just then they heard an announcement informing all of them that they were standing in the Abnormal Affairs Bureau headquarters, and the person on the mic instructed all of them to form lines so they could be teleported back to the city. In the same crowd was the bald sensei, who for some reason was getting the feeling he was forgetting something, along with an unusual urge of becoming a magical girl himself. Not far from him were 2 siblings in line to be teleported out of the place. As for their names, the one in the front was Hong, and her brother was named Z, which sound awfully similar to the names of the people who came with the future protagonist to this timeline. Back with Purple Head, who was reporting everything to number 0 and how they were investigating the source and driving magical power of this giant teleportation formation. As for number 0, no surprises there. The woman retained all her memories and was commenting how this meteorite was a pretty good explanation. And that comment obviously surprised Purple Head, and she wondered what she could mean by that. Meanwhile, our boy's parents were still sound asleep because of whatever the future self did to them before leaving the home, and on their blanket was the same note, which was also starting to disappear and had the words "Grand Reunion" written on them. Back to the two themselves. Yeah, it was a heartbreaking moment, alright. In her final moments, future self asked the kid if he still remembers the first comic they drew, where the protagonist's best friend sacrificed himself, and how they agonized for a long time over how to write his last words. Our boy just answered with a line I 100% relate to. Writing too much feels cliche, writing too little feels flavorless, but I think the final design wasn't bad. And as for those final words, it was a goodbye between 2 friends. And just like that, that marked the end of future protagonist's story. Hats off to the writer. The story cuts 3 months after all that mess and the whole city was under construction, with most of the buildings reaching their completion. As for the casualties, there were reported to be none. All the civilians were teleported to safety as soon as the meteorite hit. According to an in-depth investigation by the Abnormal Affairs Bureau, no traces related to calamities were found in this meteorite event, so it was considered a natural sudden event. Fortunately, friction with the moon occurred before impact, which significantly depleted the kinetic energy of the massive rock, effectively reducing the destruction caused to the city. The story cuts elsewhere, where a glasses guy was seen shouting on the mic, calling the whole explanation given by the Bureau bull, since it wasn't a meteorite that destroyed their city, but a weapon developed by the Bureau themselves. Surprisingly, he had a massive crowd that gathered to listen to what he had to say, and they raised the obvious question, why would the Bureau do something like that to its own people? And the man had the answer to that. It was because the Bureau needed to maintain its authority, so they created this staged event to show the people their Bureau was still necessary to protect them. Not just that. According to this guy, the calamities were also the creation of the Bureau, which they used to constantly create crises so the public would keep spending huge amounts of tax money to support them. Even that wasn't all. According to the guy, the weapon used this time left behind a massive amount of pollution in the air. And even now, this was still affecting the people of the city, even causing deaths in some severe cases. Yeah, turns out, the people actually bought all that stuff and were sure the Bureau was lying to them about the whole thing. A blondie from the crowd, all freaked out about that pollution part that would slowly delete them, stood up and asked the man to help them. The old guy assured the woman not to worry, since he had already prepared an antidote for all of them. It was this special liquid that he managed to acquire using his connections within the Bureau, and according to him, if they consumed it, their body's resistance to that pollution would gradually increase. But his secretary reminded the guy they only had 100 of these bottles left, each costing tens of thousands, so they couldn't just hand them out like that. The guy told the woman they had no other choice, explaining everyone gathered in the room today was family, so he would generously offer them for 100,000 yuan per bottle. And the stupid people bought that all made-up crap without a second thought. Just then, as he was handing out the things, the woman heard knocking on their door. Approaching the thing, she told the person on the other end that their master's class was already over and suggested they come back tomorrow for the next session. Before those words even left the woman's mouth, the door to the place suddenly broke off its hinges, and boom, the woman was sent flying through the air. Cut to the one responsible. It was our boy. Who else could do something that extra? As for the officers with him, yeah, none of them were happy, since this is not how they do things, but that wasn't the important thing right now. The important thing was that old man and how on earth did he find out about the secret weapon and the Bureau having a hand in the city's destruction. Yeah, the guy had no problem telling her everything he knew, so he reached into his coat to bring out his answers, which just happened to be in the form of a grenade. Thankfully, it was just a smoke bomb, and the thing managed to do its job, and the people who are supposed to be trained for situations like these started blindly bumping their heads against the walls to find the guy. But by then, the guy was already out through the window and was climbing towards the ceiling to escape the scene. And surprisingly, he managed to reach the roof without any problem. Yeah, right, like it was going to be that easy. It's our hero we are talking about here, and tricks like these don't work on him. Sure enough, as he looked up, he found the girl already standing on the rooftop who had busted her way through the ceiling and came straight up to catch the guy. Yup, it was official now, the guy was screwed, so he asked that they at least settle this matter outside of court. Next panel, and he was sitting inside the court, confessing to all his crimes. Turns out, all the stuff he told the people back in that room was bull, stories he made up. He has no memory of anything that happened during that whole incident. But our girl refused to believe those words and shouted for him to tell her the truth. But the cops, on the other hand, were convinced the guy wasn't lying. After all, she beat the guy to a pulp, and if he was really hiding something, it would have come out by now. Turns out, following the recent events, the police force of the city was having a really hard time maintaining order, so they reached out to the Bureau asking them to lend some of the magical girls. Our girl was one of the volunteers who agreed to help them, and they were grateful for that, but the man still begged her to refrain from roughing up the suspects. Just then, another officer came into the room to inform the man about some people from the Bureau who just came to their station. But our girl was lost in her own world, still not sure what she should make of all of this, because the fact that she was the only one who remembers what happened was frustrating, not to mention the terrifying power she witnessed when those two women clashed, and because of that she didn't know how she was supposed to catch up to that level and stop the remaining 5 calamities. Just then, she saw a sight that would cheer anyone up, and that somewhat surprised the kid, since she should have been in another part of the city handling her assignment. After a while, the girls were telling the kid about a mission that had suddenly come up, and the Bureau wanted their team to handle the assignment. According to the details, an A1 level calamity event had occurred in the neighboring cities, and they were being deployed there to investigate the situation. Yelin, on the other hand, was making it clear to our boy the only reason she came here was because of the mission, and definitely not because she was worried about him. But not even letting her finish her words, our boy told both ladies to strap up since they were heading out immediately. Fast forward to the next chapter, and we are somehow now inside a classroom with a woman explaining some math stuff to the students. In the same class, there was a smartass who was telling the woman to stop wasting their time with this basic stuff and teach them something that actually matters. No surprise there, the woman didn't appreciate his tone, and since he was so confident, she suggested he come up to the board and explain to the whole class how to solve this problem. The guy agreed and prepared to step up to the front to teach these idiots how to do simple calculations. In the same classroom was another kid who was watching a girl sitting beside her using AI to find out the answers to that question, when suddenly a third, more cheerful and bubbly-looking girl raised her hand, offering to solve the problem instead. As for her, she is a transfer student to this school, and because of that, the teacher agreed to let her handle it instead. And man, when that girl opened her mouth, the whole place froze, because it was like she had a computer for a brain. She didn't even need a calculator or anything to solve those complicated problems, and that part shocked everyone. And the one most shocked was the teacher herself, who was left speechless because the answer that girl gave was correct. but the method she used to solve it was something she had never seen in all her years of teaching. But calming herself, she told the class that although the answer was right, they shouldn't use that method since it wasn't in their syllabus, so they wouldn't be getting any marks if they used it. After a while, the class ended, and the same masked kid was getting ready to head out. That was when he accidentally bumped into a pencil box on a girl's table, and the thing fell to the ground. As for the one that pencil box belonged to, she wasn't exactly happy with how he was just moving along without apologizing or picking the thing back up. And yeah, see those eyes? It's our boy wearing that wig telling the kid that knocking over a girl's stuff to get her attention wasn't a smart method of approaching her. It doesn't make her think he's cool. On the contrary, she just thinks he's an idiot who's gone crazy from holding it in for too long. Yep, those were the last words he expected to hear coming from the mouth of such a beautiful girl, and he was so stunned he didn't even know how to respond. Cut to the outside, and Pinkhead was heard asking our boy to go a little easy on her since this was her first time doing this. And no, this isn't what you think he's doing, so get your head out of the gutter. He was just helping her hide those massive badonkers, since the things were just too big and were making her stand out, which was something they didn't need right now. As for Yulin, she told the girl to stop whining since they couldn't blow their cover because of those massive honkers, to which the girl apologized but also reminded them she couldn't help it. She was just built different, unlike those ironing boards they were working with. After taking care of that, our boy asked Yelin why they came here and what exactly they were looking for. Turns out she had no clue herself. They came in such a hurry that she didn't even check the mission details. All she knew was that whatever they were after was inside that classroom they had just left. Pinkhead herself had something to say about that classroom, something she saw out of order during the teacher's lecture. And when asked what, she reminded Yelin they aren't allowed to use their phones during class, and her honor student attitude was really getting on Yelin's nerves. So she reminded the girl that they weren't here to take lectures, but to investigate. Cut a couple of minutes, and they arrived at one of the places their bureau had marked for them to investigate, which happened to be a sewer, the worst nightmare of any girl. But Yelin was more curious if the kid had been secretly working out again to bulk up, since he lifted that thing like it was no big deal. After a while, they were seen walking inside the smelly underground tunnel, with Yelin telling both girls that this place was the school's abandoned sewer, which had been sealed off for years, until a month ago when a school cleaner accidentally entered this place, and that person somehow stumbled across this room which no one before that day knew even existed inside this place. And the reason this room was so disturbing and why the Bureau wanted them to investigate was because the whole damn place was littered with piles of bones, and not any bones. Take a closer look at those skulls. Yeah, these are exactly the remains of what you are thinking. Not just that, but there were also several scraps of torn uniforms scattered all around the place. According to the information they had received so far, people from the forensics department were secretly dispatched to this place to investigate, and according to the report, the time of death for each of these individuals was within the last 2 months. As for the numbers, DNA verification showed at least 170 different victims, with ages ranging from 16 to 18. So yeah, these were all students from the same school they had been assigned to investigate. Yeah, no, Pinkhead had one very important question. Why on earth was everything in that school so normal with so many students going missing? Turns out, that was exactly why they were sent to this place, to find the answer to that question. Why, even after such a large number of students went missing, the school never noticed or reported anything strange. And not just the school, not even a single parent had reported their children going missing either. Their bureau went through the school's student files and also conducted a large number of secret inquiries in the surrounding areas, but didn't find anything out of the ordinary, and that was the most unsettling part, since it was like all these students never even existed. After hearing all that, our hero asked if she was saying that somehow the existence of all the deceased had been stripped away, completely erased from people's memories and even from related documents. And the answer was yes, but there was something their bureau managed to find which might help them crack this case. After comparing the DNA of all these people with the current teachers and students of the entire school, they found 3 individuals whose DNA perfectly matched the ones in this pile. And when the pink-haired girl asked what that meant, she told them it meant those 3 people should already be dead, but somehow they were still living their lives as normal. And even more shocking, one of them was the boy sitting right next to our boy. The story cuts to the school toilet, and inside one of the stalls was that same kid, staring at a student card, and that student just happened to be our hero. And after the humiliation he had to suffer by her hand earlier, he was planning something far worse than death itself for her. And that plan for some reason involved him dropping his pants to the floor. Yeah, see? Now this is just messed up. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys can tell what he was doing. But want to hear something even more messed up? The person whose picture he was using for his inspiration was glaring at him from outside the stall. Cut to outside, and 2 more male students were seen getting ready to enter the restroom. And the moment they stepped inside, they froze on the spot, because right there on the ground was a male student with a massive bump on his head, with an absolute beauty glaring him down like a predator. One of them, thinking he was some big shot or something, and the female in front of him was another weak girl who he could intimidate into doing whatever he wanted, tried saying something along the lines of if she was looking for a good time and if they could join in too. Yeah, no, not even 2 words out of his mouth, and he saw red liquid seeping out of a wound on his throat, and the thing that caused that wound? Just a button. Turning back to our Chad, they heard him warning the two to get lost if they valued their lives. Yeah, say no more, both fools instantly turned around and bolted in the opposite direction. After they were alone, our boy slapped some kind of sticker on the guy's forehead, and guess what he said after that? He told him to continue doing what he was doing earlier, because she wanted to see him keep going. The poor guy had no clue what he was supposed to say to that, so he asked the girl what she meant by watch him do that and what exactly she wanted to watch. Yeah, it was exactly what he was thinking. She brought out her phone, set a timer of 10 minutes, and told the kid to bring out his baby Johnson and get to work, and if he can't satisfy her suspicion within this time, his head would be rolling on the ground. Cut to outside, and the poor guy's desperate cries were heard echoing through the whole place, followed by the sound of another heavy punch, with our girl's voice telling him to shut up and do as he was told. After 2 minutes, the kid was still struggling to get it up because of the death glare he was getting from the girl, so he started using his imagination to try and work something out, and the first thing that came to his head was our girl in a cat ear costume. But even that wasn't good enough for him, so he switched to a maid outfit, still not good, so he went straight to her in her default skin, which also turned out to be a complete waste, since he had never seen a woman in her base form, so he didn't know what was supposed to be there. Just then, his face got smashed into the ground by our girl, who was already at her limit, and since he had already wasted 7 minutes and didn't provide her with the necessary data she came here looking for, she got ready to end the guy. But in doing so, she accidentally awoke something inside of that fool, something seriously dangerous, because the feeling of being pressed down by a beautiful girl's feet made his baby elephant finally react. Yup, from helping Pinkhead tie up her massive front cushions to that room filled with bones, this was the last thing our boy expected to deal with today. And then it happened. A volcano finally erupted, making headlines inside our boy's brain, followed by a rocket ship that blasted off into space at full speed. And at the end of it, the guy was completely out cold, with our hero finally satisfied and leaving the poor man on the floor of the toilet. After a while, she was seen going through some details on her phone regarding the data she managed to gather from that kid's weird little episode. And no, the results showed he isn't the one they are looking for. Cut to an hour ago when the three of them were coming up with a plan to fish out the calamity responsible for everything, which was now confirmed by the Bureau. After they conducted a large amount of preliminary magic detection in the surrounding areas, the results showed that a unique calamity was residing in this area and was disguised as a human, and they were instructed to investigate 3 suspects, the 3 people whose DNA overlaps with the victims. She explained that the Bureau gave them new equipment this time which they could use to easily find out which of these 3 is the calamity. All they have to do is stick this sticker on their forehead. That was all our boy needed to hear, so he immediately turned around to get this over with. But according to Yaelin, it wasn't as simple as it seemed, since the only way this patch would be able to activate was when the subject reached a certain heightened state. Yeah, you heard that right. According to the item's details, it was developed 2 months ago and published to all magical girls for field use, and its working is simple. The humanoid form taken by a calamity is completely indistinguishable from a normal person in terms of blood and human tissue structure, but no matter how perfect it is, it's still a disguise, which means that they actually have no reproductive behavior rewards, which is a bummer. What's the point of living when you can't even feel that feeling when you are doing it with someone? Well, anyway, back to the explanation, and this is strictly for educational purposes. When a human is bumping uglies with their partner, the brain provides intense pleasure as a form of positive feedback, rewarding that behavior since it helps with reproduction. And that feeling is commonly known as an orgasm. During this process, specific regions of the human brain show extremely strong brainwave reactions, but that only happens in real human cases. As for calamities, although they can mimic the outward behavior, their brains don't actually trigger the reward mechanism, therefore no brainwave reaction appears on the device. Yet from all that, our boy only made out that the nuclear woman he made glow like a light bulb with his awesome skills was faking it all along. Pinkhead further explained that this device can record brainwaves and detect that difference, so as long as they analyze the brainwave patterns, they can tell whether someone is a real human or a calamity in disguise. But Yirin was getting really uncomfortable with all that in-depth detail, so she asked our boy to stop asking any further questions. All he needed to know is that this thing works, since the Bureau has successfully applied it to identify 74 calamities and suggested they figure out how they are going to do this. In the end, they each took one picture and decided to wing it and wait for the opportunity to present itself on its own, which in our boy's case already did. Just then, as all that was going through his head, he spotted Yaelin with one of those suspects. That was when, out of nowhere, he felt a sharp pain shoot through his body out of nowhere. Cut to the two on the ground, and Yaelin was heard inviting the girl to her place. And instead of sugarcoating it, she straight up told her what she was planning. Before the girl could give her an answer, something came crashing down from above and hit right on top of Yaelin's head. And that something was our boy, back in his macho form. The scene cuts to a flashback of when our boy's future self was telling him the 3 things he would need to remember if he wanted to save his world from the 5 calamities. Just then his eyes snapped open. Turns out he was still in his male form, and since he hadn't transformed back to this form in a while to recharge his magic, he lost consciousness back then. Looking back, he noticed someone had tied up his hands. Confused, he started looking around to figure out where he was. That was when he heard some strange moaning sounds coming from not far from them, so he immediately got up to check what was going on, and found that same girl also tied up, with Yelin using some unholy objects on her to find out if she was a human or not. Well, anyway, after she was done with the girl, she turned around and spotted the kid standing beside her, and she wasn't happy seeing his face. As for the results, no, this girl isn't a calamity either. So Yelin got ready to use memory-altering magic to wipe her memory of what happened here and send her back. Turns out this whole thing was our boy's plan, who suggested to the girl, instead of taking it slow, she kidnapped the suspect and forcefully used the gadget on them, and she wasn't happy about any of this. As for the one who pitched that idea, he was telling the girl he was the older brother of her friend who came over to help with the mission, and asked her to untie him. Yeah, no, not happening. She still had a score to settle with him since she was still having nightmares to this day because of what she was forced to watch on that cruise ship because of him, so she needed to get even with him for that first. As for his sister, she demanded to know where that brat was because she knows for a fact she wasn't the kind of a person who would bail in the middle of a mission without letting anyone know. Our boy just shrugged it off, saying she could ask her herself when she comes back. Realizing she was just wasting time with him, Yelin turned around to leave, telling him to stay here since an ordinary person without any magic would only get in their way. But then she stopped when she heard the kid asking about the result of that check she did just now. That surprised the girl, since that brat even told him about that gadget, so she just told the kid that girl wasn't the one they were looking for, so it only leaves 2 suspects. Yeah, no, our boy told the girl to untie him immediately, since her sister's result was also the same, which means Pinkhead's life was in danger right now. Cut to the school's basketball court, where the squad's most unathletic member was playing basketball with the final suspect. Whoa, maybe I was wrong. All that time spent training with our boy paid off, since the girl was way too nimble on her feet. Not just her speed, look at those moves she was pulling, and then as soon as she got her chance, she pulled off a half-court shot, and that ball went straight through the basket. Her skills surprised Yellowhead, since she never expected the smartest girl in their class to be so good in sports as well, and since they made a deal that if she plays basketball with her, she would hang out at her house tonight. So the girl prepared to pack her things, but first she needed to change, because of course they can't be walking in the streets smelling like a locker room. Pinkhead was just happy that things were going smoothly, and the only step left was to get in the middle of her legs and find out if she was the one who ate all those people. Just then, her eyes landed on her jacket, so she quickly ran to hide those pictures, since she couldn't let that girl find out this whole thing was planned. But then in the middle of that, she noticed something off in one of the pictures, and for some reason, looking at them once again, she found out the answer to their questions. So she quickly pulled out her phone to warn the others, but just as she was about to, the whole place went dark. Not just that, her phone also lost all signal, so she wasn't able to reach out to anyone. Realizing this was no coincidence, she got ready to transform and stop the person before things got any more out of hand, but surprisingly, she wasn't able to access her powers, which made 0 sense. As she was trying to figure out what was going on, she failed to notice a shadowy figure that was slowly creeping up on her from the back, and by the time she noticed its presence, it was already too late to do anything. Cut to outside, and a security guard was seen locking up the school gymnasium to end his shift. That was when he felt a tap on his shoulder, so he turned around to see who it was, only for his soul to nearly leave his body at the sight that awaited him. It was just his coworker pulling a prank on him, but the guy wasn't happy about it. But then, in the middle of his panicking, he spotted something else, so he asked his friend to look up. Yeah, anyone would be scared of this sight. As for the 2 guards, they were so terrified that they started screaming, and almost immediately both of them lost consciousness. As for Yelin, she wasn't sure if she should praise this guy or be creeped out, since the guy managed to make things so much easier for them just by putting on a skirt and a smelly old stocking on his face. But ignoring that, she ran to the door, unlocked it, and both of them entered the room to find Pinkhead. But the whole place was empty, as if no one was ever here, which made no sense, since Pinkhead clearly told Yanlin she was heading to this place with the suspect. Although this place was completely empty, our hero couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something. But Yanlin dismissed it and prepared to head back to the rendezvous point since she was sure the girl was already waiting for them there. But our boy told the girl not to do that since he had a hunch that Pinkhead was here and was attacked by something or someone, meaning there was a really high chance that Calamity was the reason they weren't able to contact Pinkhead. Well, that's all for today, folks. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, and if you want to know what happens next, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, take care.